So this is the question. Let me know if something is missing. Hello. So I think it has like noted down or extracted this much text, right? We can go through. You can see my screen, right? Yeah, here are the test cases which were not mentioned, which are not there in the extracted test. Okay, so what we have to do is uh, a library management. We have to build a library management system, right? In here, develop a simplified library management system that manages books and members within the library, enabling book management, member registration, and book lending features. Okay, so what we need to handle is book management. So we need to build inventory, right? And member registrations of sign in, sign up, and then book lending features. So this feature will be playing with the inventory, right? Now, if you look at the system requirement, now the system should support the following operations: book management, add books with details such as title, author, status, and number of copies. Okay, then we have, so these are the attributes of a book, and count is the total number of books we have of that uh, count of books we have, right? And for a specific book. Then we have member management, then where we have to handle register members with details like name. So user will have a name for now. And then book lending, so allow members to borrow and return books. Okay, now reflect the updated status of books available or borrowed. So each book reflect the updated status of books. Okay, so in the inventory we need to, for each book we need to keep track of if a particular book has been is available, is there in the library or not, right? And maybe and if it is not, maybe we could also show to whom, like who has borrowed it, and display a list of books currently borrowed by a member. uh, so okay, bonus question: reservation system implement a feature that allow, yeah, Shrini.
Actually, one thing, so should we need to consider the payment in case if fines here? So that's not there.
Yeah,
Um,
the test is
Payment.
not mentioned in here, so
Okay.
but maybe we can, yeah, for now, but payment.
No, but you'll have to stick to the requirement. No.
Correct,
Yeah,
correct. That's what I'm saying.
fee payment, fine payment, or
That's a fine payment. Okay.
no. Now, bonus question is reservation implement a feature that allows members to reserve books that are currently borrowed by other members. ये कैसे हो सकता है? हाँ,
System should
that are,
implement feature that allows members to reserve books that are currently Acha, in advance, right? You can stand in a queue. Like एक ही piece है उस book का, right? But there are a lot of folks who want to get hold of it, right? Let's say that book is not in the stock right now, so others you can put them into queue, right? The moment they come, they can grab it.
okay.
I guess.
So
Yeah.
upon returning a reserved book, notify the member who reserved it and make it available for borrowing by the reserving member. So they have specified कि once a book is returned, Notify the member. So we have to handle notification as well, right?
Sort of observer pattern, yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
make it.
So the first point, I think
Mhm.
it's I mean, it's sort of interesting. It's something like first in, first out, right? Whoever signed up first or requested,
Hmm.
you'll have to give it to them, right? So,
Right. So any pattern is there for that?
um,
I don't think, right? Or
I don't think so. Uh,
okay, but for second one, like observer, it seems like right to notify the
yeah,
members. Uh,
Yeah, maybe each user can have a notify method.
so we'll make an interface void notify, right, and add the observers to the observer list.
Yeah, book will be the observable.
And observers will be whosoever have reserved. I mean, associated with that book, right?
Yeah. So
yeah,
like for an example, we have book data.
Hmm.
There are two books. These are the different titles. These are the title, author, and then how many book we have, how many copies do we have for Pride and Prejudice. Then similarly, we have a data for members. There are two members in this system. Now register a book. So we can add book. So operations that we need to support in our system is we should be able to add a new book, register book. So each book will have a unique ID, then title of a book, how many copies do we have of that book, and author of that book. Similarly, we should system should be able to register a member, and a member or user only has name field for now, and ID and name,
ID and name, yeah.
right? Then we have operation called borrow book. So ID is 2, and then borrower is Alice Johnson.
Hmm.
But yes,
Yeah,
Sampak.
go with Sambhav. I mean, feel free to just.
Yeah, in in the case of book,
Mm-hmm.
what is the source of truth? So, for example, if I have a book with the title of Pride and Prejudice,
Hmm.
okay,
Hmm.
now we are maintaining a aggregated column of copies, right?
Yes.
Now, if we apply a unique consent on title, then and if the same title repeats, then we'll increment the copies, right? But is there a source of truth for individual books?
Here we are not using the database concept. You'll be using with in-memory hash map kind of thing, right?
Yeah, only for LLD, but
Yeah. Acha,
uh,
HLD are asking, okay. At
no,
DB
no, I
level.
was thinking, yeah, if we are creating the object of book,
Mm-hmm.
so do we need to have any other parameter which will give us the specific details, or copies is sufficient?
So author can be used for classifying it further, right? And can two books have same name?
No.
Yeah, so if if two books are exactly same, so we'll increment the copies of it, but the serial number maybe is the thing which will be the key.
Oh,
Okay.
primary key you are
but,
saying.
but actually the serial number, right? The serial number we maintain it when based on the, I mean, like how it, because the serial number is a unique number, right? So every book has serial, even the same publication and the same author, right? But serial number will be different, right?
Yeah, so that will be unique irrespective of it's a copy or not.
Correct.
Oh, so you're saying what should be the primary key in this case, right?
Yeah, so if we are designing the book object, then we should add that field also in that, right?
Yeah. So, okay, so ID.
So what
Yes.
you are saying is even
So
a
so
certain publication, an author releases a book, each book will have like a book named Pride and Prejudice, then each book will have a different serial number.
yeah, so what I'm saying is there is two type of data here. One is the source of truth of book, which will have the serial number details. So
Hmm.
in that table, sorry, yeah, for now, if I speak from the table perspective,
Hmm.
so in that source of truth table, each book, irrespective of it's a copy or not, each book will have a unique entry, and a separate table which will show us the inventory, or which will show us the aggregation data, which will be copy data. That It's a
Hmm.
copies. So these are two separate things, because we cannot mix them. We cannot keep the aggregation data in the source of truth table.
Then what we
Yeah,
would
I
do?
think,
Uh-huh.
and I think his point is like, because we are not considered for sets option here. I think, so like maintaining a catalog, right? That's what he's saying, right?
Yeah, 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 correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you could have a different table uh, with one column as serial number and another as maybe book ID,
Yeah, correct.
foreign key, as right, where book ID will be foreign key.
Book
And
catalog will have the copies data that would support our library management system, and the serial number table will be like source of truth for complete books inventory.
okay, but do we want to get into this much details for now,
No,
or
but
we can just increase and decrease this count whenever a book is borrowed or returned?
Yeah, yeah, we can do that. I thought that if inventory management is also a part of it, then we should think of it in that way also, like what
mm,
will be the source of truth and what will be supported as a catalog.
mm, no, makes sense. I mean, ID you can take as a foreign key to the catalog table, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
let's for
So
now let's stick to
yeah.
the
So the
requirement,
Mm-hmm.
correct. Okay.
core requirement, right? Now here, can we someone please explain like how, like what is it trying to say? Like borrow book ID for both.
Register book.
So both of these have like borrowed this one, this book. Is it what you're trying to? Okay. Killer Mockingbird. Okay. Okay. Then okay, cool. Thanks. Thank you. Now operation is book available? Then output for a book to kill a mockingbird. The ID to status is borrowed, and output for a book Pride and Prejudice status is available because we had two copy of To Kill a Mockingbird book, and both have been borrowed, right? So we currently our inventory is empty of for this book, right? And since no one borrowed this book Pride and Prejudice, so therefore the status is said to be available, right? Now other API that we need to support is return book, so which user will call to return a book, and in here they are specifying the book ID and again the name of a user who is returning. And next operation is what books
Member hold.
does a member hold? Output for member Bob Smith, member ID is 1, book is To Kill a Mockingbird. So like in this example, yeah, like both the user borrowed second book, so and each has borrowed one, so that's why this array has only one book,
Mm-hmm.
one element, right? So expectation is code should be demoable
No,
either by using a main driver or test
I
cases.
mean,
Avoid writing monolithic code, should be readable, modular, testable, extensible with proper naming convention. It should be easy to add, remove functionality without rewriting the code base. Okay, don't use database. So here they have mentioned it. ये
true.
फ्लिपकार्ट का है ना, तो
हाँ,
can be hard coded, please do not access.
so when such problem statement comes, right? So we should think either of abstract class first or interface, right? First thing first, correct? So what do you guys think? Like, I mean,
Abstract class and interface, but
uh,
we have not decided, right, what we are abstract class or interface.
मतलब mostly these two would be the first requirement. I mean, we have to find any functionality which is
So when
common.
do we use abstract class? And
Uh,
so when we we have attributes as well, right?
yeah, you have attributes and multiple subclasses are there which share common attributes and features with this, right? Let's say void, let's say if you define abstract class for the animal, right? And you have a
Yeah.
method inside that void speak. So cat will have something else to speak. Dog will bark, right? I mean, we need to override that particular function.
Yeah. Okay. So in abstract, like in case of abstract class, like
Mhm.
I think all the methods that are there, they need to be implemented in order for class to be
Non-abstract.
initialized, right? Like someone will be able to initialize or instantiate a class
Mhm.
once all the methods that were there in the abstract class have been
Correct.
overridden, like
Uh-huh.
overridden.
Otherwise, that subclass will also be declared as an abstract class if any
Yes.
of the methods is not there.
And
So, so do you see anything as abstract or interface, like any common functionality? Or how do you guys proceed when you see such questions? Like,
will
Like the Surya way, right? The Surya in the previous call mentioned first we should uh, mention all the actors. In this case, would be a user for us, right?
okay.
Users, and then we should members. Sorry, then all the entities, and then start building the relationship either from top to bottom or bottom to top.
So then user can be an abstract class in this case, right? Because user can either be a member or he can be a librarian, right?
Issuer, yes, it can be
Right?
issued. Yeah.
Okay, so let's take user as an abstract class.
कुछ अलग फॉर्मेट फॉलो करेंगे इसके लिए शशांक। तो
Uh-huh.
इस कोड में दिया हुआ है कि हम एक वर्कबल सॉल्यूशन लिखें, वो डॉक्यूमेंट में दी गई है ना, तो
Right,
कुछ
right.
ऑनलाइन आईडी यूज करके करें क्या?
वो हम लोग like next day we come up with the working
अच्छा,
solution. Today is like mostly like discuss all the ideas and all, right, like
मेक
classes.
सेंस।
That is the main, yeah.
हम्म,
either what we have is, so entities that we have is, like we have a library management system, right?
तो यूजर तो abstract class होना चाहिए ना, right?
Yeah,
Let's define
let's
first.
first initialize what all entities
Mm-hmm.
will be there in our system,
Right.
right? User will have book, will have system, will have inventory,
Yeah. Then
and system will have inventory.
inventory needs to be an entity.
Yes, like if there are inventory will have list of books, right?
So what will
how
system do?
about
Uh-huh.
how about we create something like a library, and library contains a list of books and list of members. That way you don't need inventory. So your object should be close to your physical reality, no? So inventory as such do not exist in a library. Library exists as a library. I
Okay.
mean, you could definitely model as inventory, but that's a bit similar to yeah, like your fulfillment management or warehouse management systems. But if you model closely to the real world, a library as a physical entity is storing your books. It's not maintaining separate warehouses or anything behind the scenes, correct?
Hmm. Library or system, what you wrote. Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So for the system, you could use something like library management system, which gives you an interface or like the entry point for your APIs to perform add book, add member, delete book, delete member. So system can exist, but it should be called as library management system. It's a management system.
Okay. LMS, right?
Yeah.
Library management system. And what else? A user could be a member,
Yeah, or he could be a librarian or what do you call it?
but
Admin.
librarian operations were not involved, right? In here.
Yeah.
Okay.
None
Acha,
of the
adding a
functional
book.
requirements give you that you should support a librarian.
Sorry.
The functional requirements given do not talk about librarian like in
Correct.
the document you guys showed, right? So apparently the user is doing all these operations himself,
But there
but
is
it's
one
good.
operation that operation of registering a book,
Mm,
right? So
who
user
is
won't be.
mm, got it. Makes sense.
Seven mentioned.
Then it said about notification, right? Notification.
Yes, notification. Then you said about penalty and all, right?
That is an extra
Actually,
requirement, but
reservation. Got it. Hmm. Now
probably,
reservation.
sorry.
Reservation,
So reservation will be, acha, okay.
or should it come within the library only? Or LMS system? I mean, library and LMS system both are one and the same, no?
So LMS system, so this entity will be just responsible for exposing these
Okay.
APIs and
Hmm.
delegating the task when these APIs are called,
Okay, entry point sort of. Hmm.
है ना?
Hmm.
And library will hold books,
List of
and
books and the.
as per Surya, library will hold members as well.
Hmm.
Yes.
So
Okay.
right, so and for performing operation like borrow or return.
That will happen in LM in library itself. Will write those functions.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe.
So
Hmm.
book should do the add book, possibly.
Hmm.
Wait. Yeah, library does the add book because it is maintaining the list of books. So you add book to the library. You add member to the library.
Hmm.
So we can simply say book and member exist as like model classes. They are your domain objects, but the functionality to the domain objects is provided by the library class. Hmm. Hmm. True. What's the question? Hmm. Yeah, library can exist as a service, but in low level design, we don't usually need to write the Spring Boot app or any REST API or something. So you if you see the requirement, you need to defend your design by using test cases or by using driver programs. So a driver program can be as simple as writing a main class that creates a object of library management system and calls like creates a library object inside the LMS and says library dot add book, library dot remove member, things like that.
So do we see uh, any more like any entity that's not present here? Like maybe we could. Library will have a mechanism of reservation as well, right? And it will be managed via library only. What do you think?
Library, sorry, could you repeat?
Book.
So we need to support operation of reservation, right? So even
Hmm.
if a book has been so if a certain book is not there currently,
Hmm.
right? And some user asks for to borrow that book, right? So we need to hold that book. So we need to capture the request, user's request for a
Hmm.
particular book, right?
Hmm.
And we need to notify the user once a book is back.
Hmm.
So that part could be handled in this reservation. What do you think?
Yeah, you could say that. So reservation can become a complex entity of its own. So regarding the process, like how the sequence happens, right? You'd have the LMS. LMS would have a library object in it. Library object can
List of
so
books.
yeah can add book, add member, all of that. But reservation is a virtual concept. Like you could add it to an LMS or you could add it to library. I think it makes sense to add reservation as an entity processed by the LMS system, because when you think about is it a physical object, reservation is not a physical object, so it can be a part of LMS as well.
Hmm. Okay, whatever is physical object for that only we create an entity, right? And
Not
these are
necessarily, yeah. So like it's up to how we think how we want to model objects. So usually in object-oriented programming, you want to model close to the real world. So if you put reservation inside library, you have members and users, which are physical operations. Reservation, which is a virtual concept. So should you
And
place it inside library, or should you place it inside, like, the interaction points? Should they be inside library, or should they be inside LMS? Is the question we probably need to answer.
reservation is more of an action on this entity, right?
Hmm.
So that should be, and on what we are performing this entity, on what entity are we performing these actions? On the books and
Yeah.
the members, right? So typically it should come under the library, and at the end of the day, library is managed by elements.
Yeah, because we'll have to look what books we have, right?
Hmm.
Update,
Like whether we
Hmm.
have copy of that book available or not.
right?
Hmm. Makes sense.
Let me know if you think otherwise or you get an idea. Okay, so let's start modeling these, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like for an example, what we'll have is we have a user.
Okay, I can put it below diagram a little bit, otherwise text. First, you can, right?
Right? User will have an ID, user
Mm-hmm.
will have a name, and user will have a role, whether he is a member or a admin. Right?
Address. Acha, we don't address they haven't told about, right?
Yeah. So let's so user role. Let's it will be like,
Shouldn't that be enum?
yeah, it's an enum, right?
Okay.
So it's either a member or an admin, right?
Hmm.
Then user role.
Book.
Now, what else do we have? We have book. Book will have an again an ID. Book will have a name. Book will have author
Of
details,
description.
description, and serial number, right? But we are not.
Can that ID itself be the serial number?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it's an
Actually,
ISBN.
Ah,
Imagine it's an ISBN which is unique and automatically available, so you don't have to generate it. That
this
can act
ID,
as a primary key.
ID will be more of UUID, right? Or you want to keep it as
ISBN is a internationally recognized serial book number where each book, if registered or printed, you send to the ISBN council and it assigns a number to you. So it's like universally accepted. Irrespective of the title being duplicate, the title plus author, however rare, can be duplicate or whatever, or the version. Let's say there is same author, same book, but he wrote a part two of it. So rather than going with all of these jargon, you just refer a book by using ISBN number.
okay.
That can be a unique identifier in the book, like a primary key.
then number of copies of that book.
Yeah.
That we will not maintain in the book, right?
Number of copies available. So when you remove the concept of inventory, what you have left that maintains like what is available.
Sorry.
So not is available. Um,
Maybe so should we manage it somewhere else, like maybe a book manager who will hold like for a certain book ID,
no, the book should be able to
how many
uniquely.
count, how many
Hmm.
books we have.
Number of copies.
Mm,
What is the role of the LMS system here in this case? Will it be like having those from automatically managing if the book been borrowed or issued, something like that?
So LMS will be kind of uh, like interface, or basically a class which will have all the APIs, which we these APIs, and user will be, so user or a member will be interacting with LMS, and it has APIs, and behind the scene what it will do, it will just delegate the tasks, right? Like for an example, a user came to register a book, admin came to register a book, so it will ask book manager to, behind the scene LMS will ask book manager to register a book with so and so details.
Okay, like I don't understand the need of an extra class like book manager here. Can't it be book exhibit into library or some like other class? Do we need to create a separate class for this?
So idea is to keep this book class as a simple class or a dumb class, and it will be,
So
book manager will be responsible for all, like all the CRUD operations that will happen for a book. Like if you want to
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, is it needed like to have a different class for
yeah,
this?
let
so
me solve this contention. You don't need a book manager. I'll tell you how it's solved inside the book itself. So imagine you have a book, and this book contains details about references to your reservation as well as available quantity. So you just say something as quantity, QTY. So whether that quantity represents a reserved quantity or it represents an available quantity can be decided based on what is the reference to the reservation. If the reference to reservation is empty, then those books are available. If the reference to a reservation exists, that means those many copies are reserved. So because one user cannot book more than cannot reserve more than one book in a library management system, you will have as many entries in this book as there are number of reservations. So
Yeah,
your
that's
book,
what I was asking. Thank you.
yeah.
so total and available, what you are saying, right?
uh,
Total.
total would not be
Okay, or
because
maybe just available. Yeah,
just
then if you
quantity.
will, if we'll just maintain available, how will we know that
How many
how many
available?
book this system has
Yeah, so
actually had?
total
Because
and booked you can maintain.
No,
Automatically you will get available.
just say quantity and let's go from there. So you use a generic terminology called quantity. Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, if you want to identify how many are available, right? So imagine remove available and say reservation detail, something called reservation ID.
Can't it be like the total number of books available minus the quantity that already been there, like
Hmm.
available? So it will be the rest, the remaining that the user can access to.
And secondly, reservation ID, you are violating the principle of SRP
Hmm.
itself, right? Like, why should book have a attribute of reservation ID, right?
yeah,
Because
That should come under library or LMS, right?
no, see, when someone is asking, you're saying, I'll show you all the books and I'll let you the books that are reserved by someone else as well, right?
True.
So if I do not have a view or if I don't have a visibility of um, like what books are reserved, how many books are reserved, I won't be able to show that.
So,
And this can also get complex. Like in practical systems, you might want to have your book as the source of truth, which provides you details about all such references it makes. And if you want to know further detail about it without having a lot of join query, you just refer this reference ID and you'll be able to get the reservation detail, like who was it reserved to and everything in one go.
and what's the
So
normalization
But
that if you put,
should
uh if
sorry,
you,
sorry, please, Shashank, go
no,
on.
I'm saying if you put reservation details and all also under the book itself, then
I'm
what's
not
the,
saying we put reservation details inside book. We're just saying every reservation will be uniquely identified by ID. Imagine that's like a foreign key to the reservation table, and
true?
you reference it here. So we are not keeping all of the reservation details inside the book.
but this is not a attribute of a book, right?
Hmm.
This
Exactly.
is
That is
not an attribute of a book.
So yeah, shouldn't be book manager should know these details like what is the
Hmm.
quantity of the book's particular book and who has reserved this book, right?
specific. Yeah, exactly.
So, like in the low level code, you could do that, but how does it translate to your book entity in the database?
So in the
Imagine
database, you'll have a
Data
reservation table and you'll have a book table, right?
Yeah.
And
you have a book manager table.
no, no, one will have reservation table and one you'll have a
Mm.
book table. Book
Mm.
table ID will act as a foreign key to the reservation table, right? Whether this specific book is reserved or not, right? Right.
Mm.
A book table, another is reservation table. In reservation, you maintain the ID, and ID from
Mm.
book table will act as a foreign key to that table, whether it's.
So, if I want to know
Mhm.
all of the ISBNs that are ISBNs for a given book that are reserved, how do we achieve that in the uh, in the book? Sorry, in the reservation table. So you create a ID foreign key here,
Mhm.
and you will index that, and you will be able to retrieve it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'll get the ID from here and check into. I mean, yeah, definitely indexing on the ID, and then based on that, I'll check in the reservation table whether it's booked or not. Because the reservation ID is not a attribute of a book, right? Like, if I give you a book,
Hmm.
is reservation ID only in the library. It makes sense, right? In the real world, in a shop, a book doesn't needs to have a reservation ID, right?
Okay, I work in inventory management system. So this is how it happens. A given material should
Okay.
be able to tell whether it's reserved for someone. Like you look at a book, for example, you support a concept of virtual reservation, for example. You look
Mhm.
at a book and you should be able to say that this book is reserved or not. Now, if you are going to reservation, then you are interacting with a different entity to identify the status of the reservation. So you as a management system are
Mhm.
depending on the a reservation entity which is used to solely represent something like how many books are reserved, how many are available. Can I reserve this or not is what should be told by this reservation. So in a primitive system, it
Mhm.
could be like you can maintain probably clean separation of concerns, have reservation. But imagine when this grows on scale, if a book does not tell itself like am I reserved or not, how much of my quantity is available, and you probably would when you're reserving a book, right, you probably would want to get the number of books from the book table. And how do I represent a book that's reserved, a book that's available? Imagine in this book class, you are maintaining it as a catalog class. So actually there should be a different catalog that's storing all of the catalog details about the book. And the book is a physical representation of a instance of a book. Let's say there are five different books. Looking
Mhm.
at the book, I should be able to distinguish all these five. So looking at one book, this book has been reserved or queued for one user. This book is available. This book is physically reserved by another user and is in possession of another user. That
Then,
way you want to represent all of them and have like unique properties or attributes of that book. This book is in torn condition, this book is in
true,
some other condition.
those identity. But now let's say, will you mention this also that who borrowed this book?
Yeah, so that reservation ID
Uh,
is mapping to this reservation table, probably which has a reference to the user. But with this modeling, where I store a reservation ID and couple of other attributes of a book, I'll be able to uniquely distinguish books. And if you whatever you're saying, right, it does not belong to book. That's true. But that's true as long as the book is a catalog. It's not a physical representation of a book.
okay.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, but okay, fine. Yeah. No, but let's say now who borrowed this book, right? Let's say I want to know. Will you
Uh,
keep that information in the book itself? When was this? Till which date to
no.
which date is this
Yeah.
book borrowed?
So who borrowed this book? You
Mhm.
have so when you're making a reservation, okay,
Mhm.
what is the process of reservation? So imagine I have five copies of a book. Okay.
Okay.
So one book is reserved, rest four are available. So the way it usually works is this book is supposed to distinguish between reserved books and available books. So I'll be talking to two tables, book table and reservation table. In the reservation table, I'll
Mhm.
be capturing these details from date, to date, user, ISBN. and every other attribute that helps you uniquely identify that particular
book.
record of that book, right? So
Okay.
that reservation, that will be one. And then inside your book class, you'll be
Mm.
splitting that into two records, at which point the ID alone being the primary key will not suffice, because there will be two unique, so there will be two distinct books that are pointing to the same ISBN ID. So one will be your book that's reserved. One
Mm.
will be your one record will be representing the book that those four copies that are available. So I suddenly have like two copies of the same book, and the first one against that reservation ID, uh, I'll first create a reservation and take that ID and map that ID against this reservation ID. So when I have to vend some view, like get me all reserved copies of this book, I don't need to touch the reservation table. Rather, I will index on the book table itself, where I have all the details of the book also available, and show segregation like these, out of n copies available in this book, these many are reserved. So against, if a reservation ID exists, that
Mhm.
means the book is reserved. If a reservation ID does not exist, that means the book is available. So if you do a simple difference operation or summation operation, you'll be able to get the total. You'll be able to get the segregation between both, because you only two types: available and reserved.
Mm. Okay.
So yeah, the concept of a book not being able to store its references is incorrect, because in physical world, in inventory management, in every other place, you want to be able to granularly identify a certain given item, because not all books are same. Some book could be in a torn condition. You may want to replace that book soon, and you
True.
want to store attributes. What is the lifetime of this book? Probably your library decides to have a 5-year lifetime before you want to recycle those books and replace with new copies.
Okay. I think you shared some question. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Question.
I think I didn't question.
Okay.
So basically, he's trying to say that if we'll keep these attributes in a same class, the
Mm.
number of queries that we will require, okay, for queries that are for supporting these operation will be lesser, and since like basically they will be faster because we
You don't
don't
refer
require
to
joining. We won't require joining multiple.
tables. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's true. Okay. So you don't have to refer to the reservation table in case if you find the number or tell me the number of books which are reserved, right? Directly will have
Mm.
that much.
But we need to.
Why why will book have a quantity attribute?
Mhm. How many copies of that
Like
book is
as per the like
Now
principles, like like it is incorrect having quantity in the book.
now
where will
suppose I have a Pride and Prejudice book. All right.
mm-hmm.
Now I am hitting the operation of adding a book. Now for adding a book, the book entity has the quantity um field, right? Now if I add a Pride and Prejudice book, that should just increment the quantity, but adding that book will instantiate the book class which has the UTY, right?
Yeah.
The first question is that. So why is the aggregative field is the part of the book entity? Second
Good
question,
question. Mm.
second question is that you said that ISBN number would be the could be the primary key of book entity, right?
Mm.
But again, what I told earlier, that if we are considering the book object as the entity which will represent each and every book individually, then that should be a serial number, because ISBN number represents a book, not the copy of it. Serial number will represent each and every book individually. And because why serial number is required? Whenever library is giving the book to someone, we'll map it with the serial number of it, not the ISBN, because ISBN represent that book in the world, each and every print of it or each and every copy of it will have the same ISBN number but different serial number in that library. Library wants to play with the serial number, and ISBN number doesn't.
Across the globe,
Reservation
that is.
system is
Yeah.
not like ISBN is not required for the reservation system of library. Library
Mm.
reservation system requires serial number to play on it.
Yeah, as I said earlier, if you are representing the book as available and reservation IDs, so this ID alone, if it's an ISBN, cannot be used as the primary key of the book any longer. So we definitely need the serial number. Second part about the availability of the book being coupled with the book, that definitely looks like a anti-pattern. So at which point we would need to have some sort of view to answer our queries, like how much is available, how much is reserved. So for like cleaner separation of concerns, we could probably remove the quantity from here, but rather maintain a book view. So that does the aggregation on the book table and can be updated transactionally or out of the transaction.
Is it book manager what Shubham was talking earlier? There you want to maintain a map sort of thing corresponding to this ID. What is the quantity?
Book manager
Or
at the domain
catalog.
level.
How many catalog, whatever, yeah, or catalog, what he has mentioned here.
So usually catalog is like, imagine you go to a restaurant and you see a menu.
Mhm.
So you don't have quantities, you don't have like availability. Is it
Okay.
available today? Is it not available today? You'll probably not have those details in the catalog. So catalog is like, imagine your book and you strip off all the state of the book. For example, the fixed or static fields. The ISBN is fixed, the name is fixed, the author is not changing. The description of the book rarely changes. So if you take away those concepts and if you want to model that without duplicating the book table, because for every instance of the book you are duplicating the name, the author, the description, right? So you'd simply reference to a catalog and say this is the catalog ID of this book, which I'll uniquely use to identify the details about the book, and I need to persist the state of the book. For example, how much is available, how much is reserved, what is it reserved against. So all those things will be part of the book. I still strongly feel every book should be able to represent itself. Every instance of the book should be able to represent itself uniquely. Like who am I reserved to? What is my condition? So to answer your first question, the moment I say quantity, it's trivial, right? I'm adding a book. If I'm adding a book and if I'm mentioning a quantity, I do a select first from the database and see if the book already exists. If it exists, I'll increment the quantity. If it does not exist, I'll create the quantity, like an upsert operation, depending on the state of the database table. I do not see any concern about quantity being present in the book, unless you have any other pointers to add, Samba.
If we are having the quantity which is a aggregative field in the
Mm.
entity, then
Mm.
how you will do the CRUD operation? So if
What do
I
you
have
mean?
already,
Mm.
if my entity represents Pride and Prejudice, which has two copies currently in
Mm.
LMS,
Mm.
now if I want to add the same book, now adding the same book will require a book entity creation at the service layer. Now entity creation need to have a aggregative field, which doesn't make sense.
So you're saying quantity, let's say I want to add two quantities of a book, right?
Yeah.
So when you say entity gets created, what does it mean? You want an object getting created. Is
Yeah.
One
that right?
row.
Why?
Mm.
See, quantity or aggregative field
Mm.
uh, is a group operation, grouping operation, right?
Mm. Mm.
Now, if I'm playing on a single book, now
Mm.
again let's connect to physical world. Okay,
Mm.
I'm playing on a single book. That book should have the referencing data of reservation, which is fine, which makes sense. But why that book should have the data of, okay, how many of the same book is present, what is the count of it, that doesn't require in the book entity na. That is the part of LMS need to maintain that, okay, I already have two books of the same kind. I'll increment the one thing, I'll increment it by one.
or a
So from
library.
the database perspective, how will, like, if a library manager got like a stack of 10 books of the same ISBN, same everything, he wants to add 10 books. So how would you say he adds it without the quantity?
No, no. So quantity, uh, book. So see, whenever a book addition is happening, book addition
Mm.
will go to the source of truth table. Let's call it book only.
Mm.
Okay. Now book table will have each and every book separate entry. Doesn't matter if it's a copy or not. Okay. Consolidation or aggregation will be a, group by operation.
Mm.
Uh, that is a, whatever we are performing, that is a, that operation is on top of the source of truth, which is book table,
Mm.
right? So yeah, that we can maintain separately in a map or manager kind of thing for now. But on the view of data, from the view of database doesn't need to know the database doesn't need to maintain a copy table separately. If that is a, very frequently fetched thing, then definitely we can maintain it. But if not, then we can simply do group by things.
So are you saying we should not maintain quantity in the book at all?
Yeah,
In the
I don't think quantity should be a part of book entity.
Okay, so imagine book is your domain object which you're exposing to your customer, or let's say ad book takes the ad book wants to add 10 books. So without me representing the quantity there, how will I be able to add 10 books? Imagine book as a model which you're exposing to your client. They want to add 10 books. You'll expose your book class, you want them to add these book details, and then you want to supply the quantity. I want to add 10 quantity. Now, if you're asking about CRUD operations, I can't imagine why I won't be able to do CRUD operations. So you want to create a book. So create, I want to create 10 books. Now, from the user perspective, who does not know the state of the database in, it's a create operation for him. So he wants to create 10 books, which means he wants to add 10 books, for example. So I look at the database, I want to see, is this book already present in this library or not? If it's already present, then even the user wants to create, it's an entity that exists for me. Against the record that's representing the available books, I would increment this quantity because nothing else is changing other than the quantity. And if there is no record that exists which says which represents the available rows, if all of the books are reserved, I'd simply go ahead and insert one more row that says this book, 10 records are added with no reservation against them. So read is quite straightforward. Update, you want to update some attributes of the book. For example, you want to reduce some quantity of the books because they are no longer available in the system. Somebody did not return the book for 10 days or 100 days, which means that you want to disown that book. So update the quantities. Delete the book, delete that pinpoint record, delete probably this book that is reserved by this person because he has returned the reservation. And you could model it as like delete plus create, or you could create as an update operation as well. So I don't understand the concern on why we can't do the CRUD operations if quantity is modeled as a part of the book.
Suppose if user takes a copy of Pride and Prejudice. Okay.
Hmm.
Now before his, uh, like, borrowing period,
Hmm.
he then gives it back to the library.
Hmm.
Library takes the book back and increment the count again of the Pride and Prejudice, right?
Hmm.
Where is the check that will make sure that whatever book I borrowed, that is the same print or same physical book I am returning, the name and all things that match. But where is the
Exactly.
check?
So I'm not disagreeing with the ID concept. I think you are mentioning each book should be represented by its serial version, which means you will be maintaining, if there are 100 books, you'll be maintaining 100 records of the book.
Yeah,
Is
but
that
if
correct?
quantity, so you are saying that 100
Hmm.
records will have the quantity as 100. So
Hmm.
that is what, if is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So
That's
the
not
books.
in DB perspective. In DB, you will make 100 entries of the same, I mean, same name, same author,
You
100
will have to do
copies
it,
are there.
right? Because you have separate serial numbers.
But isn't
Definitely,
that
each print will have a separate entry in database because
true?
it's a source of truth.
But does that looks good?
Yeah, yeah. See, if my library has 100 copies of
Same book.
same book, then definitely
Hmm.
100 entries should be present in the database.
Maybe we won't store everything if
No,
required,
you
like
have to
name,
store.
author.
You have to store. A row is saying, right? Row means like you'll have to replicate the same information, only the ID will change, right?
No,
In
no.
every.
So,
Uh-huh.
so get used to to get used to the scale of it, we can definitely segregate metadata of a book and the copy or print data of the book.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
and
the initial point was that if you are maintaining quantity in a book entity, then
Mm-hmm.
and so if a book has 100 copies, so 100 copies will have quantity column with 100 as a value of it, right, Surya?
okay, so no, in my concept that was not true, but I get what you are getting at. So I initially mentioned we wanna treat each book separately, like we wanna tag condition and everything. So if we are maintaining quantity, which is representing an aggregate, we won't be able to do so. And physically also, how big can a library be? Probably containing a million records. That is still fine if you have proper indexing and stuff. But one thing that's missing is you won't be able to answer queries like how many copies of this book exist here without it being a time expensive operation, possibly even if you index the books properly. Like for that reason, you would probably want to have an availability view on top of this book. So this book will not represent a quantity, rather it will have n number of records for n number of books in that. And you could also probably preserve lineage, like you see currently a book is damaged, you want to know when it got damaged. So reservations is a transient entity, which means it's keeping on getting deleted as long as the reservation is invalid. So you want to maintain lineage somewhere, for which you could either have a history table where you could do audit log, or for this simple use case, because I'm uniquely representing a book by its serial number and record, which is perfectly suited for something like a library management system, because the number of books are limited, how much you can contain. But it's a very bad design for something like an online bookstore. So it depends on that pattern. So for this case, I do agree with the concept of not representing quantity and aggregate view inside the book, but rather create as many books as there are in the physical world. And rather, if you want to answer questions like how many are available, how many are reserved, offload that to a view that can provide you such details with eventual consistency.
So here, where will you maintain the quantity? Like, do you want a
So
separate
yeah,
class?
the quantity is in a view. So how do you model that view inside that database? You could either call it as a manager or simply call it book aggregation. So that aggregate will be an aggregate view on top of the books for you.
Okay, so basically with the class which he has drawn the books manager, and he'll have a map ID corresponding to the int is the number of the copies of that book. Is it?
So this is a book aggregation. So you'll have no, you'll not have a map, but rather you would have like a book ID will be referenced here, and you'll have something like available quantity, reserved quantity, damaged quantity, something like that. So a book manager need not be a map. It can be something like a reference to the book ID and quantities of each. And I'd rather call this manager is a cluster word, right? You could put it to anywhere, but this is specific aggregation we are talking about. So I want to call this book aggregation.
The manager in the sense, because let's say somebody borrows this book, he'll have to reduce the quantity, or if a new copy is added, he has to increase the quantity, right? And
Uh,
reference value, this is like we are not into DB concept here, right? In the low
hmm.
level, I mean,
It
like
is not, but you are representing those entities itself here, no?
true.
For
I
example. Hmm.
I mean at that level, but here, I mean here DB is like your map only, right? Just for the sake of this problem, right? If you have to make it executable, they are saying that
Hmm.
you have to use DB and all. You can use a map,
Hmm.
isn't it? in memory, like not in memory, forget about in memory and all these things, just a normal
Hmm.
data structure called map,
Okay. Even
right?
when you're representing this inside a availability view, right? For example,
Mm.
you would have like a aggregate data structure keyed by the ID. I definitely agree with it. But
Mm.
the quantity will simply not be an int, but it would rather be something like a quantity which will have our list of quantities, or
While list.
list of books. Wait. So you currently you are representing in the book manager or book aggregation how much is available and how much is reserved. For example, your aggregate should give you such details, right?
No,
So
one
hmm,
you know, the other you can easily find. It's a complement of each other, right?
who is telling me the total quantity then?
A total quantity only you'll have to maintain. Rest, booked I will, I mean, as and when books are, I mean, they are borrowed, we'll
Hmm.
reduce the quantity into the mark.
But you'll will have to maintain. So
It should somewhere talk about quantities, Shashank. So you
So
should have like distinct quantities of it. So like available quantity, total quantity. So maintain at least the two of them. Um,
okay, two maps you are saying basically, right? List of available books and, but I thought since they are complement of each other, okay. But you need to know total and then the book. Or
right. So how many are available?
hmm.
These are the total books, right? For a particular book ID.
No, one more thing to be added here is that book will have a string ISBN number, okay, and ID would be a serial number. Aggregation would happen on the ISBN.
Hmm?
अच्छा क्योंकि serial number. Okay.
But to list, if there are 1,000 books, you need a list of 1,000 elements.
This one, like this, right?
Yeah, just add ISBN in the book entity as well.
And remove the quantity from
No, it's written in capital, right?
there.
I,
Yeah. My only thing is in the first map, why are you using list of books? Why not directly quant int?
how will you know that how many books your library has?
this is an aggregate, right? So an aggregate does not need to represent the list of books. It should not also represent the list of books. All it should care about is, if you
Mm-hmm.
look at the database table perspective, it will have three columns.
Mm-hmm.
First column is what is the foreign key to the book that I can uniquely identify the book. Probably it's ISBN, and how much is available and how much is reserved. So you would have list of quantities actually, not a basically you would have something like reserved quantity, available quantity. So if you replace the list, remove the second one totally, you don't need three maps. You just need to maintain a map of ISBN, comma, available, and reserved. So yeah, remove that second attribute called list, and probably you are going into this concept of having three keys, which is like a
Be-
tuple. So have quantities which represent something called quantity, which internally tracks available, reserved, and something else. So just have something called quantity.
वो
ISBN.
हमें
so this is int is quantity, right? How many books
ऊपर
are?
वाले में ऊपर
Yeah,
वाले
you don't need this next. So maintain only the first one. You don't need the second and the third. So the value that is present in the book list or book map, call just that the value as quantity, QUANTITY. You don't need a
में
list.
हाँ
Replace the list of book with quantity. And quantity internally can be an object of available, reserved, total, and whatnot.
अच्छा that way you are coming, okay.
Acha, okay.
Hmm. So you want quantity to be a class, right?
Yeah, it's a class. So yeah, you may want to remove the additional two attributes which are available and reserved.
तो इसमें प्रॉब्लम क्या आता, like if you would have a map and that would have total, another
Mm.
map would have been of borrowed.
Uh,
अच्छा तीन
can
map
you
में
tell me one thing? Like ISBN represent a particular book, right?
true.
No,
No,
a
ISBN
kind of.
represent. like a catalog, as in this. So given this ISBN, you'd be able to reverse look up the name, the title, the year published, the author, probably language, and those details.
So you mean
So
to say for two books you can have same ISBN.
two books can have same ISBN. That's why your ID that's present in the book is a serial auto incrementing one. So you may wanna write on the book the ID, Shashank, as auto incrementing, not this one on the book class. The ID is a serially incrementing one.
Okay.
So
You,
yeah,
yeah.
in the brackets you could write something like auto incrementing ID.
So your book manager will have only map. That's it. Remove other two.
Yeah.
Book manager will only have
तो
this.
क्वांटिटी में टोटल भी तो रखना पड़ेगा राइट ओनली अवेलेबल एंड रिजर्व्ड टोटल
So
ऑल्सो
it will be always a combination of these, right? Total will be combination of these.
बट इनिशियली यू विल गेट टोटल राइट टोटल में से रिजर्व्ड इफ यू सब्ट्रैक्ट अवेलेबल यू विल गेट
So whenever a book will be registered, initially they will supply number of copies, right,
ओके
for
यस
that book. So
दैट
what
विल
we
बी
will do is when we will add the book, है ना, we will increase the available count by 3.
ओके यू गॉट 3 कॉपीज ऑफ इट
And whenever someone will borrow or return, we will increment one and subtract the other, or we'll subtract one, increment the other. Like for an example, if someone user wants to borrow Pride and Prejudice, so for that ISBN, book ISBN, we will decrease the available count and increase the reserved count.
रिजर्व काउंट
Yeah, let's remove the available and reserved now. The second and third attributes of the book manager.
Right
हम्म
now, okay,
लाइब्रेरी
then we have we'll have user.
so whenever the requirement comes for a quantity be it any problem right like of that instance how many quantity are there better to have a separate object for them right rather than making it
Yeah.
an attribute of that entity or like is there any other thumb rule for that
Yeah, I think you can simply maintain list of users and list of books in the library.
okay
Or book manager.
Book manager.
And book manager has it, right?
Book manager is an aggregate view. This I differ with this. So library contains a list of books. Library does not care about the aggregations. Library cares about every book that's available. Should be list of books. Book manager is your, imagine it to be like a simplifier for you, so you don't have to query all the books. For example, you present the list of books, right? Even in your Java in memory, I wanna surface the availability of given book by identified by its ISBN number. I will not be able to do unless I do O of n lookup operation. So this map is simplifying that for me. But as a library, I care about all the books that are available to me. And if I want details about all the books, I should still be able to fetch it. So it should be list of books rather than book manager. That's why I want to call that book manager as book aggregation or book view, something simple like that. It is not talking to CRUD operations on books. It's only facilitating you to maintain an aggregate view of something.
Book manager. Okay.
Yeah.
And library will have books and then book aggregator, right?
Because you need to do a lookup before you act on something. Otherwise, you scan everything.
Hmm.
Yes. Then what else? So we made uh now let's look at the reservation part. So like or it will have library, right? Then it will support operation like register a book. From here it will call library to add a book. What we'll do is we'll create an instance of a book and we'll add it to the list.
Hmm.
यहाँ पर
Register.
डिटेल्स होंगी, राइट?
हाँ, register.
uh,
एक यूजर ऑब्जेक्ट जाएगा उसमें.
book and then uh, add
Again,
it to
what do you
list
mean?
of books में ऐड कर दो, राइट? ऐड करो बुक को and then maybe book aggregator uh, update quantity, right?
Hmm. Update available. अच्छा.
अपडेट अवेलेबल, हाँ ऐसा भी कर सकते हैं एक बार, लेकिन अपडेट अवेलेबल, अपडेट रिजर्व्ड, अपडेट
Reserve तो okay हाँ exactly. Depending on that right.
सो बेसिकली एक तो होगा अपडेट क्वांटिटी, राइट? एक मे बी द ऑपरेशन वन विल बी अपडेट क्वांटिटी वेयर वी विल इंक्रीज द अवेलेबल
Yes.
और
Update available or update reserve. या books available जो भी. Hmm.
एक तो हुआ सब बोरो लेट से वेयर वी विल reserve increment reserve, right?
Okay.
And then and will decrement available count, right? Then we'll have return will do what? It will increase the available count but it will decrement the reserved, and AVL will increase, right? And then update quantity will increment, update quantity will increment uh, available count.
हाँ.
Is it fine?
In library right.
Do we have any concerns, questions?
No, this is fine.
Okay, so similarly, like if we want to, so we want to support the operation, which one? Like the reservation and notification as well, right? So register member, okay. So similarly, we'll have uh, a register user details, maybe username, just username for now, right? We'll create user
Mm-hmm.
and to the users we'll add the user, right? Maybe role will be specified as well, है ना?
Okay.
Then
Then user class you will go right. In user class, you will update
And
the.
can't we have like can't we create a user manager for handling all the user operations? Add delete instead of, and library just will be responsible for delegating the operations to user manager.
LMS क्या करेगा फिर?
So ये तो delegate कर रहा है operations that are like operations APIs expose कर रहा है, right? LMS is exposing API, so it is just an interface with which client will interact, है ना? और ये बस लाइब्रेरी को बोलेगा कि भाई ऐसा ऐसा कर दे.
Yeah.
Okay, like for an example, later on in future, if you want to log everything, right? We want to add logging, so maybe that can be handled in here. So for in each API, we can add logging. So what's happening, what's not happening, how many register calls are,
In the user API also.
which user.
Oh, no, no, come again.
So this register, so LMS will be just responsible for exposing the APIs that this system should support these APIs,
Okay.
है ना? And
Mm-hmm.
it will be, it will not do any work, it will delegate those uh, task, right, or to library.
Okay.
Okay, so like for an example, register, when a user called register book or admin called this function register book, है ना? Maybe we could add validation here कि the user who has asked who has called the register book method, is that user an admin or not?
Yeah.
Okay, so यहाँ पे we can add validation, so validate whether user is admin. If user is not an admin, give error,
Member, normal.
not allowed,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Forward the request, and
To register a book, acha, register will a book will redirect it to library, correct? Mhm.
हाँ, so it will, let's say, validate, है ना? And will, if user is validated, so if user is admin, will forward the request to library, and then library will add it to the list of books it is maintaining, and
Got it.
to the book aggregator, right?
Mhm.
Similarly, we can have, I was thinking this way, like user manager, and user manager will have list of users, and he will support add users operations, you know. So register user will call user manager. You,
User manager dot add user.
है ना, with details.
Mm.
Do we have any concerns, Preeti?
User manager there also you can how many books this particular user has ish bought borrowed, right?
So how many?
Books like books borrowed by user if I want to know. So those methods we can have inside user manager or any concern in that.
Okay, so user history we are talking. No, not user. It is
Sort of user history only. Correct. That is what, right? How many
should,
books?
and similarly, we can have history for book as well, right? Though it is not mentioned that these are the required. This is a requirement.
Okay, like these books were
Yeah,
purchased.
like for an example, each user will have a history, right? What all books this particular user has bought till now, or
Yeah,
returned, like transactions the user has done,
correct, correct.
right? And
Mm.
similarly a book can have transaction, right? When was this book borrowed? When was it returned?
That all in Gotcha. Mm. That is that you will have reservation. I mean, somewhere we need to have reservation table then for that. Correct, which will have what to what time it was borrowed, right?
But here, weren't we handling reservation? Like, weren't we handling a request, pending request in the reservation? Like,
Okay.
a request will come and we will specify, like,
Queue.
we will queue basically. Ki for a particular book, who all users are interested in borrowing it, so that we could notify them further.
Yeah. So, but yeah, okay. Book of list of users.
Yeah.
No, but hmm, how do you know like this book was purchased? I mean, not purchased, borrowed from given date to given date.
This book was purchased from.
Not purchased. I mean, borrowed from given date to given date by given.
So we need to log it somewhere, right? When
Hmm.
is the operation happening?
Hmm. So you'll have some borrowed date, right? Like somewhere you must have borrowed and returned date. Where are we?
Yeah. So
Should
maybe
it
we could have a place where we will maintain it. What name should we give it? Like
log
reservation. Huh?
log actions?
Ledger.
Log ledger. So that is used in more of a finance
Acha. Okay. So here we will maintain for
book ID.
book ID.
Start then borrow date, issue date, and return date.
And maybe operation type
Acha, enum you want to make.
for a book ID, operation and date. ऐसा कुछ.
ये दोनों होगा issue date and अच्छा ये
So it could be operation could be a borrow or return.
return. Enum basically. We are creating a map within that log table, right?
Huh?
We are creating a map only, no operation type comma date.
So it will be like ISBN
Okay.
map of, and then maybe list of operations. Uh, so we will have to specify user as well, right?
Yeah. Use.
Which user is who is performing these operations.
Okay.
Maybe we could have something called as not transaction, but let's say order. Which one? This log operation. Hmm. Yeah, so let's say operation type, and then at what time this operation is happening and who is performing that operation. So let's say operation operation type हो गया, and then we will just maintain in here we will just maintain for which book these operations are happening. So list of uh, operations, or maybe we need to support what operation, like we need to support uh,
Sorry, what is the purpose of this log?
Log
so
like this book has been borrowed from what date to what date by which particular user.
reservation IDs you were you were talking about, Surya, right?
Reservations will get deleted. You should not bank on them. So it's like reservation is representing what exists today. So there is one way for this. Let's not solve the log or ledger problem here, but one way is like you create this book aggregator, right? Sorry, you create this book class, right? This can be offloaded to a change data structure component where change on every book is logged, and sent an event to, which is uh, batched periodically or until certain limit is reached. And you can keep dumping to a data warehouse where if you want to run any queries later point in time, you could do this join on the reservation based CDC and book based CDC and get what you want out of it, unless this log is your primary requirement. Did the requester ask this to be a requirement?
So we need to support this operation, right? Like what book does a member hold?
What book does a member hold can be solved just by reservation table.
So
So you have this reservation table, no?
yeah.
You have book ID and user. So because you are not maintaining an index on the user, you would have to do an O of n lookup, like iterate through all the books and stream match when the user that is requested is equal to this user. So otherwise, if you want to solve this problem in O of one, you also need to do another store another map. No. This map is fine. It's not map of user. It's list of user itself. And you will have one other map which is like a invert lookup. You will have a map of user and list of book IDs. So that's not an anti pattern when you're solving it in inverse.
Inverted index sort of.
Yeah, so user and list of book IDs. List, it should be list, no, because one user can. So instead of updating just one map, you are maintaining two maps, but you can still have a better lookup in O of one, which is great. So just a pro tip: you should not aim to solve e- the patterns that would require you to have synchronous lookup using log kind of data structures. They should be offloaded to, like, log kind of data structure should be used for ledger and analytics, and you should try to solve within your domain objects itself. So log is an anti pattern, I would say, if you
I
are
didn't get
trying
your
to
point. Like
in
it's
transaction.
I didn't get your point. It's
See, if you're trying to solve this problem of what all books this user is holding using some sort of log structure, that's an anti-pattern. You
yeah.
should serve such queries using your
What
domain
do you mean by
objects.
anti-pattern?
That's not a good pattern, no? So this is, so all the data that happens after your transaction is a analytic purpose. It should not be used for your production queries. This solving by using reservation domain object is a good pattern. Solving by using log pattern is an anti-pattern or not a good pattern.
Okay, you're saying logs and all is for the background jobs. I mean, for the analytics and all, right?
Yeah, those are for analytics, right? We
Mhm.
should not be serving what books this user is using logs.
Right. Yeah.
So name is incorrect.
हाँ, मतलब वो reservation में like you can keep that info, right?
That's
And
that's the, that's the answer of reservation. No, that's the thing that should be answered by reservation object. Like
correct.
who is reserving which book? This book is with whom? That reservation object. So if you create a log, it could either be duplicate, or it is intending that you are creating a ledger kind of entity here, like which is maintaining lineage. where did this book go through. So that's fine, having ledger is fine, but that should be for analytic purpose and not for production queries.
Okay. Okay. So okay. So what we can have? So for reservation, maybe map of like list of operations. Is it fine?
Why? You served whatever is asked out of you, know what is this user holding, that's all already. Why do we need list of operation?
So list of operation is like for a particular, let's say user came, the user says that he wants to borrow a book.
uh,
So we should maintain it somewhere, right? It's a transaction that's happening. We will
Correct.
be, so we
Yeah,
should
you're
log.
maintaining it in reservation.
So
So
that
if
is
it,
list of reservation, right? Or acha, you want to keep that operation thing with respect to book or ISBN, is it?
so like you want to answer two queries here, right? First query is, this book is reserved by three people. Who are those three people? So then you will ask get reservation by ISBN, which will give you a list of users. So it's presented these three users. Then librarian want to talk to them or whatever. Then you want to answer another query given a user, like you are in a user portal. User logs into the screen. You want to serve what all books have I reserved. So that will be served by your second map, get reservations by user. So you don't probably need an operation here.
Or you can, rather than
But
list of
these
book
are
ID, you
like
can,
all the requirements were kind of, uh, as you said, analytics part, right? How many books a particular user
No, no, no.
has
How
borrowed.
many books a user reserved is an analytics pattern. But what all books that the user currently has is a production synchronous business pattern.
mm, things
Okay.
happening as of now. Yeah.
Yeah, so user logs into his portal. He wants to see what all books have I reserved. So that should be like an instantaneous query. It should be very very quick query. So for that, you are maintaining this reverse lookup based on, like, usually reservation of a book is, the way you look up is this book which all users have it. Now the other reverse lookup is this user what all books he has it. So this operation etc etc, that can be an offline pattern, but show me the requirement that's asking you to do a lineage on the operation.
So what books
Yeah.
does a member hold?
That's all. What book does a member hold? Give me
No,
the
no, no.
user
Status.
ID.
If you look at the status, that is showing the operation, right? Whether it's borrowed.
So that
Where?
we can like that we can return or fulfill this requirement we can fulfill via book aggregator, right? Book aggregator maintains for each book how much quantity, like how much books
Correct,
are
but it does
available.
not talk about the users. Like, given a user, show all the books that I'm holding. Which operation are you talking about? There are like so many without any numbering sequence here.
Okay,
Okay.
so the operation, last operation.
Last operation. Okay, what book does a member hold? Now we just created one map based on user, correct? So
Hmm.
given user, I have user ID. Retrieve from the map. That's all is needed. No, if it's present here, that means there is a reservation. That's all. We don't. And when a reservation has ended, when the user has returned a book, we remove from here. So reservation is only tracking what is the current state. It does not care about the past.
And where are we
But where
invoking?
will we, so
Hmm.
should we maintain transactions or not that are happening?
You
Why?
should. So tell me one thing. Remove the list of operation. Look at the second map. Will we be not able to answer that question? What all books this member is holding?
But how will we know that which when did the particular operation happened?
You are
And
saying something like, are you saying, okay, when did something happen? We
yeah,
don't care when did something happen. Imagine
then
user borrows a book. You add to here. User returns a book. You remove from here. Every time you're only showing the current view.
He's
okay.
basically talking about history, I guess. Then, like, if but what time it was borrowed.
I don't think he's
I'm
talking
talking
about
about
this.
transaction, right?
What do you mean transaction?
So uh, when is this like aggregator getting updated, right?
Yeah, so aggregator gets updated during, like, let's say library management system asks like reserve a book. Okay, when a book is getting reserved, three things get updated. The books inside library, if you are
Like
storing reservation difference. If you are not storing, then that's not even needed. You'll update the reservation. You'll update two maps inside reservation. First map is against the ISBN of this book. You'll add this user. Against the user, you'll add this book. And in the aggregator that also updates transactionally, you would decrement the available quantity and you would increment the reserved quantity. That's all is there to it. If yeah, but there are only two operations, return and borrow. If I'm supporting a get books held by member, that means he borrowed those books. If he borrowed those books, you want to show those books. So that is solved by using reservation. You don't need any other thing.
And from where we are invoking these functions, I mean updating these maps from
uh
library
Library, right?
LMS, probably LMS will have like a reservation accessor, or sorry,
object.
wait, wait. Book aggregator, reservation accessor, maybe. Hmm.
Because everything is happening at the library level, right? Adding a book or
Hmm.
updating the quantity. Now, where are we doing those of issuing a book? Voila function, where do you want? Like,
So we are not, so issuing a book.
Hmm.
or borrowing. Somebody is borrowing. We need to update the map in that
So
case, right?
this is what we are doing in reservation, right?
That's true. But from where are you invoking the functions of this reservation?
So
There are
from
only
here,
two places, either library or LMS.
yeah. So from
So
here, like borrow, return, right? So if someone will call borrow, that I want to borrow book ID this,
Hmm.
my user ID is this.
So why don't you add a flag in that? Why to take two functions, borrow and return? Just borrow, put a flag over there. Is borrowed or not? Based on that, you update the map.
no.
No, within the borrow itself, a book status you can say, rather than borrow or
Okay, update
update
book.
book status. Yeah, there you can pass a flag also, right? Is borrowed. By default, it will be false. Hmm. And because these update book status will be updating the map, right, which is within the reservation. Reservation dot, you can create a function in
Or
reservation.
yeah, having booleans in your in your method signature is an anti-pattern. Update book status say action. It takes an action, and if the action is an enum of borrow, calls the borrow. If the action is return, then maybe return.
So
So
action,
what
I
you are
think,
saying is operation type here is what user
Something
should.
of the, yeah, past the operation type. You never used it.
why? What was the issue in the flag?
So generally,
Uh,
imagine this update book status is exposed as an API. Okay,
okay.
so somebody is calling you with these booleans in the API. That is usually bad. Like if you read clean coding guidelines,
Okay.
few things is first thing. If you are passing a flag, readability is lost. They say. So if you see update book status operation as borrow, that means there is no other ambiguity in your mind. Is borrow false? Okay, what is borrow false mean? It's returning. So you have to interpret that in your head. No, is borrow false would mean return. But if you pass the operation type, update book status as return, it's returning. Update book status as borrow, it's borrowing. Second thing, passing a boolean in the function would mean you are doing more than one thing in the function, which is an anti-pattern again. So if you want to do two separate things rather than writing if-else clauses, make the function explicit such that borrow book or return book, something like that. So this, I'm not saying this. Read this
Ah,
book called Clean Code by Robert Martin. I can even link you the chapter. Boolean methods are actually bad.
About
Even then, yeah, even if you don't use the Boolean here, you're still doing the if and else. But
so
nonetheless,
if like yeah, if we would have used boolean, then we would have to use if and else. Though
yeah,
since we are using operation type, we don't need to
you
do.
pass the operation maybe to the lowest level possible. You can't avoid if else, like the very lowest level wherever you are doing the borrow and return.
Okay,
But
so
until
there.
then, keep doing the common logic and keep passing the operation type around. Otherwise, you're like sending this boolean towards functions. No, that's a bad practice in LLD.
okay.
Passing boolean is bad.
Update book status.
Okay. So yeah, if the operation type will be to borrow, then we'll
नहीं
add
तो
it
वो
to the
जो
reservation. Like we will add details to the reservation, and then we'll have we'll update the aggregator, right?
Mm.
Shouldn't we have only like one class for doing both these operation, or maybe
Yeah, see, they are serving different purposes. One purpose that aggregator is serving is, um yeah, so book. Imagine book aggregator is avoiding OAuth and lookup. So how you have book here? If you go up book object can't tell you the reserved quantities and available quantities.
yeah,
So how do I solve that OAuth and problem? I would rather offload this to the right. So if the read is expensive and if you want to compensate it, what is your other option? Make the write expensive. So by making the write expensive and having to deal with one more domain view called book aggregator, I solved the problem of reads being inexpensive. So if you are saying reservation can solve that problem, again you are iterating over all the maps, aren't you? So if I want ISB and quantity, yeah. So you have a list of user, but who is telling you the total quantity of the book? There is nobody telling you. If you say reservation is able to solve it, reservation is only maintaining the current
Uh,
occupied books, right? It's not telling you how much is totally available.
Book aggregator is telling you how much that particular book.
Exactly. So you
Uh,
need such views in production where you wanna answer availability questions like views.
Actually, MVC architecture you are following views.
No, that model view controller architecture is about the front end and the back end talk through a common model. The view is a rendered version of your back end, and the controller is like the orchestrator that gets the action completed. So that's not MVC view, but these are aggregation views. So read about aggregation views in database tables.
So you are
Like
saying
consolidated view, right? Consolidated view in SQL we have.
Mm.
CQRS?
Yeah. Okay.
Command query responsibility segregation is the writes and reads should be separate from each other. So that means you will have a control plane and you will have data plane. This is more of the sort of, let's say you are a large scale inventory management system. I want to avoid group by queries. Like you could do group by queries on the book list and answer these questions that the book aggregator is answering now.
True.
But group by queries are expensive. They are not easy. They are expensive on the CPU, at least on the database. Even if you index them properly, those count, average, max, min, you can imagine how they are expensive on the CPU because you have like you have to find all the entities first, and then you have to sort them and get the last one for max, this one for the min, something for the average as well. So how do I solve this problem? So rather than the reads being expensive doing O of n, I make the writes expensive. So something like you iterate through a function, and if you see a min is smaller than the min here, you would update the min then itself. Correct? Let's say you're iterating through the list, you want to find a min.
On the fly
If
you
I
are saying.
find it in on the often rather than doing a second pass, I update in the first pass itself. Correct? That
Mm-hmm.
this is similar to that. Rather than me doing operations when someone is asking for it, I know these queries will be asked with high throughput. So let me maybe may complicate the right WRITE to update this, as in this is the current value, see if it's smaller than the value that's present in the table. If yes, update then itself rather than storing these values, scanning through all the values and finding the min. So these are called aggregation views on database tables.
Aggregation view on database tables. Okay. Let me go through that. Yeah.
It's also called materialized view.
Yeah. Okay.
So So here we'll be playing with reservations, right? So what is this doing? Maintaining reservation for uh, book borrowed,
Hmm.
book borrowed, right? And here user stats kind of. Huh, then
No, the naming of a map is incorrect here. So all the every map should say the key value pair. So ISBN user list. So ISBN user list map or ISBN users map. That's a better name. So
okay. So SPN users map and then users ISBNs map. Is it?
maybe something like this. Yeah, it's, every map, like the ideal convention in Java at least, is to reference a map by its key and value and then map.
Oh,
User ID is a better pattern than users. List of user ID is a better pattern. And if you want to know more about that user, you can always look up the user rather than duplicating all of that in the memory.
Can't we? ठीक है.
user dot user ID, na? User object will say user ID, na? Or it should be.
Hmm.
Acha, better seconds. Yeah. Hmm. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Cool. So we talked about notification and reservation pending pending stuff, right? So
Acha,
hmm,
notification, right?
book is we should only make reservation if book is available. So book aggregator is if
I
book
think
aggregator is able to perform the operation successfully, right?
no, you should have a map also in the reservation corresponding to the book, where book ID and the status of the book. So that query
So
will be
maybe we
fast.
could use book aggregator for fetching the count of books, get book count, right? And we'll provide the ISBN, है ना? If aggregate if this count is lesser than 0 or lesser than equal if it is equal to 0, then we won't be making a reservation. We will have something else, maybe
So
pending reservation.
how do you know the status of that book, whether it is borrowed or not?
We maintain, right, like ISBN comma quantity.
So,
For each ISBN, we maintain quantity, and quantity has how many books are available. So if this is 0
अगर
for a
quantity is
particular
zero,
ISBN, we will get available count, right? If this is 0, so it means we can't reserve the book, right?
yeah, you can't reserve it. But what is the status of that book? It's borrowed, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's borrowed.
Hmm.
So maybe then go for pending reservation. Okay, so are you
I thought of a map. Like in a map, I'll update instant. I mean, on the fly that
so
this
it
particular.
is also on the fly only, no? It
Yeah.
is doing operation in OFN only.
Okay, it will go to the map fetch, and if the quantity is greater than zero, sorry, less than zero.
Basically, if count is or maybe is available, we can have method, right? Is available, is book available.
Okay.
So it will check if count is greater than 0. If yes, it will return true. If it will return true, we will make a reservation. If not, then we will add it to pending reservations.
Yeah, or you can just say currently not.
Sorry.
Book, yeah, for notified.
So pending. So in pending reservation, right? Each book will have ISBN list of user IDs who are interested in borrowing it.
नहीं तो फिर अलग से क्यों बनाना रिजर्वेशन के अंदर ही लेट्स पुट इट राइट व्हाई टू क्रिएट अनदर क्लास
So pending. It will be faster, right? Maybe we don't need to iterate this whole.
no I thought create another map in itself inside the reservation same map what we are creating inside pending
Acha, acha. For pending reservations.
yeah like what is the advantage of creating a new class that I was asking
So basically, it will handle notification as well, right? Here, notification will not be involved.
okay separation of consent okay yeah
So basically, it will be responsible for maintaining this, right? And
mm.
then maybe we could have a separate. Though we should have checked, like, but we could have a notification system,
okay
right? Basically, though notification shouldn't do it, but it will go through this list once, like, or maybe we should it should get called, right? We don't need a job cron job here. Maybe it should be linked to this book aggregator. So whenever for a certain book, right, a quantity get updated, right, and it should be increase in availability count. It should we should check pending reservations for that book, and if there are, we should ask notification system to notify the concerned you. Huh. Yeah. Which event? Oh, yes. Register book and return a book. Yeah, true. That's a good idea. So whenever returning is happening, we should update book aggregator and check for pending reservations. If present, if any linked user found, user found, notify all, right? Because we don't know which user will come to borrow this book. Maybe user might have asked system to raise a request, but they no longer need it. Okay, okay, okay. Maybe, but what we will do with it, like, if you want to go with that approach, so for now, like, we can keep it
We
this
already
much
have a
only.
list, right? So list zero will always be that user who have ask for the book
But if
first.
that user didn't came, let's say for a day, maybe we waited for a day, second day, should we keep waiting, or should
No,
we ask, should
notify
we
all the
notify a
queue.
different another user who was is there in the list ki now you can grab it, like you can take it, you can borrow the book,
Yeah,
right?
ideally should be notify all. If we are auto reserving in behalf of the user, then we should keep priority. But if we are not doing so, we just have to notify. Then it should be notify all. Sorry, decrement the first index. No, 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 I won't remove. If I'm notifying all, then I would. If I'm notifying, I would notify to all the users. I'm not. If I have to know who asked for this book first, then I will just iterate over this list. List index zero will always give me the first user, right? Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, okay. If I book, okay. If I'm booking, then I should remove this from this map also.
So queue is fine, right? Even list was fine, we could just
List नहीं नहीं queue would maintain the order, right? Even list would maintain it.
leave, even list maintain, it's just ki it's easier.
और removal time वो बढ़ जाएगा. हाँ right right. Agree.
So linked
Linked
list.
list. Linked
Actually,
list.
yeah, that's fine, right? No linked list, we don't care in like in we don't care much about optimization, a
Yeah.
lot of
We have to connect the dots. So.
ठीक है, तो return book check for pending reservation, if any user found notify, right? Notify first one or notify all.
Correct.
Notify all.
Notify all the users in the queue.
So basically what it will do is it will
You have to all because you don't know. Let's say first is not interested anybody.
user dot notify कॉल कर दूं ऐसा,
हाँ एक इंटरफेस बनाना पड़ेगा.
like user dot notify से काम नहीं चलेगा.
नहीं एक for loop चला के inform all the users.
नहीं, ऐसा यूजर में एक नोटिफाई मेथड डाला है.
यूजर में नहीं डाल सकते ये बिहेवियर. वो
अच्छा,
नोटिफिकेशन के अंदर डाल दे कि ईच बुक हैव अ लिस्ट ऑफ ऑब्जर्वर्स समथिंग लाइक दैट. बट ये पेंडिंग रिजर्वेशन अलग से क्यों बना दे हम? कांट वी लाइक डू समथिंग इन रिजर्वेशन ओनली?
क्या चीज? हाँ वही मैं
पेंडिंग रिजर्वेशन हमने अलग से बना दिया है.
हाँ
बट
वही.
आइडियली इफ वी सी फ्रॉम द डेटाबेस एंड जब टेबल में हम करते हैं, टेबल में हम क्या करते हैं कि हम अपेंड करते रहेंगे. हाँ, उसका स्टेटस हम रखेंगे पेंडिंग टाइप, बट उसके हम अलग से टेबल नहीं बनाएंगे पेंडिंग रिजर्वेशन के, राइट?
लेकिन वही रीजन
अच्छा,
है कि
सो अपन बोलना चाह रहे हैं कि एक हर इस चीज का basically what we are trying, so with each entry we will maintain status, is it?
हाँ, ये कर सकते हैं यूजर आईडी कॉमा स्टेटस समथिंग लाइक दैट. बट हाँ, फिर इसमें इशू क्या हो जाएगा? देन आई हैव टू आइटरेट एंड अवेलेबल सॉरी बुक्ड एंड पेंडिंग, ये दो को सेग्रीगेट करना पड़ेगा, हमेशा आइटरेट करना पड़ेगा.
हाँ, सो और नोटिफाई कैसे करना है, अगर ये ऑब्जर्वर कैसे यूज कर रहे हैं, यहाँ पे ऑब्जर्वर पैटर्न कैसे यूज करें?
तो whenever I'm anyone is asking for the book, तो फर्स्ट तो मैं चेक करूंगा क्या ये बुक अवेलेबल है कि नहीं. अगर नहीं है तो फिर मैं इसको पेंडिंग वाले में डालूंगा. ठीक
हाँ,
है,
और
नीचे
पेंडिंग
आना.
में
हाँ, इसमें है ना पेंडिंग रिजर्वेशन में शायद नोटिफिकेशन का एक वो
पेंडिंग
जाएगा.
में शायद हम अपन को, और ये जो मेथड है कौन सा नोटिफिकेशन का, तो ये तो रिटर्न में ही है ना, और रिजर्वेशन इज अ रिजर्वेशन स्टोर. Yeah, huh.
More better than.
But
I think store is not a good word, right?
Why not? It's a storage, no? It's storing by the IS. It's only storing the storage. It's not a model entity. The model entity of reservation would look something like reservation, start date, end date, user, something of that sort. Like a plain old Java object. But this is not a plain old Java object. It's doing some persistence. This is like a persistence we have.
Then repo, reservation repo.
So basically,
False.
an reservation ID,
Mm.
then which user is making a reservation, right? What type of
Start
reservation,
date, yeah, end date.
operation type,
Mm.
and start date, end date.
Start my borrow date or return date.
Mm.
Start
But
date.
if user is coming for, like, if user is returning only,
Hmm.
Mm.
so he won't have return date, right?
Like expected return date, possibly. Like this is the maximum time you could hold.
due date, something
Due
like
date.
that.
Due date. Fine. Penalty will be imposed on him.
So can we have operation here then? So reservation will have operation, and operation will have pending due
Why
date.
will operation have date and user? Oh, because operation is made of operation type.
But again, like, even if, like, return won't make sense, right? Return date for return date won't make sense.
Make as due date, no?
So what will, so for
Mm.
due date, yeah, that is like due date, but and then
Due date should be not part of operation. Due date should be part of reservation.
acha, so acha, due date.
Mm.
Okay. Now even if we are going with this, we'll have to, depending on operation type, we'll have to set it. It doesn't look good, right? We are keeping attributes which doesn't make sense for
Right.
return, let's say.
What return?
So when user will be returning a book,
You'll simply delete the reservation, that's all. And you'll also calculate some fine. If the current date is greater than the due date, you'll still use that due date to calculate any fines.
Penalty on him.
fines.
Why does it not make sense to you?
So
Mm.
what you are saying is, for again, reservation is uh, an operation that's happening, right?
Right.
Like borrow or return. For borrow and return, reservation will happen, or an entry will get added to reservation, right?
Mm. Mm.
Right.
Mm.
Now if the operation is borrow operation, then these field make sense. Borrow date, due date, because borrow date will be same as the day of operation, and due date will be
Mm.
uh
Yeah.
maybe
So
seven
Return.
seven days
if
from
you are
today.
if you are second guessing your mapping with respect to operation, no, then you should not probably couple them. So why couple reservation and operation? It's the way we modeled it. It's causing the confusion. But do you agree that a reservation should have a due date and borrow date? It should, no? Imagine I'm leasing a piece of land. So if I'm leasing something, it should have a borrow date. It should have a due date. That's a reservation. That's a lease. It makes sense.
But if you are
Mm.
returning, if someone is returning a book,
Mm. Then reservation, the action on the reservation is simply delete that reservation. That's all. You won't persist the due date there. You'll simply remove that entry, delete the reservation.
acha,
So you'll
So
have
what
only
does it mean
status
when a
is
book is
what you are
returned?
trying
That
to
means you're
maintain
no
again.
longer reserving it. Correct? If you're no
State.
longer reserving it, should I persist the reservation? Does not make sense. Let me delete the reservation.
Okay, so we don't need to maintain status again.
Hmm.
why to delete it? You will use it for history or something like that, right?
If you wanna use it for history, that's a complicated thing again. You have to make this inactive and you have to add. your SQL queries with and the table is ever growing. It's not a good practice to have ever growing tables as your live transactional tables.
So we can have a
Delete it.
random service which will keep on consuming the past 10 days data and just remove it from the primary table and put it.
Why simply delete the reservation? No, what's the point of keeping a stale reservation for
No,
history?
see for book, but not only, yeah, definitely history is one of the concern, but
Okay,
this is
history
a,
is see there's a very distinct difference if when you go to system design interviews.
Mhm.
Um, Transactional tables should not store historical information. This is a transactional table, right? And the history that you're saying is a ever growing pattern, ever growing database. And where do you use ever growing? That's for analytical reasons. So if you want analytical reasons, have it as a change data capture mechanism. Have a reservation history table or audit table, or even have something like a ledger that's storing immutable entries for every transaction that's recorded. So it's not a good practice to have, unless, for example, you want a soft market. Why do you want a soft market as inactive? Is there a valid business use case for it? It's only add more complexity to your system, isn't it?
Performance, it will hamper
Okay.
performance.
I thought that reservations, let's say this is library fine, but let's say it's airfare, like I mean, air or by train, right? We capture
Mm.
those reservations, right? Even old reservations, whatever we have, right? Later
Mm.
we take it
Mm.
from the primary source of, I mean, from the primary DB and put it to some archival DB, correct?
That archival thing should happen on the change data capture. So
Okay.
yeah, this history is not a good practice to store in this table.
And definitely not in this table, I agree. Only the current transactions which are going on, those things make
Mm.
sense to store.
What is this pending reservation? You want to implement something like queuing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, so,
Just
so whenever someone will return a book, right?
Mm. Mm.
So Adyan said, like, we will check in the pending reservations, like,
Mm.
is there any user interested for this particular in this book, right?
Mm. Mm.
If there are users, we will notify all of them,
Mm.
right?
Mm. Mm.
And now we need to implement notification. Ah, right, right.
yeah.
It's notified. Hmm.
What?
This one, but here we are not maintaining status, right? Whether this reservation is active or maybe we can maintain it, right? If we will maintain status like inactive or maybe pending, active, and for delete we will just delete it. So once book has been borrowed, we'll delete the entry. Or maybe if it is a pending and we have like we have notified the user, we can delete it from reservation. Do we see any concern in here with this?
What?
So earlier we thought that we will maintain a separate class pending
Mm.
reservation, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
if you book will not be there, right? If
Mm.
user wants to borrow a book but book is not there, we were thinking that we will add it to this pending reservation,
Mm.
user info to this pending reservation. But now we are thinking, is this just a should we remove this class, and basically in the reservation class only we will maintain the for each reservation we will maintain status,
Mm.
and status will be pending or active.
Mm.
Okay, active
Mm.
means user has borrowed the book
Mm.
but not returned, and
Mm.
pending is user is interested in borrowing but book is not there, so it is in pending,
Mm.
right? And
Mm.
whenever some user will return a book, we'll check
Mm.
if if some user is interested in this book, so basically
Mm.
this map will be maintained in here. Now interested users, or here interested users.
Mm. Are we not complicating it? I mean, pending reservation. So reservation could be your abstract class, or can we model pending reservation as an extension of reservation is what I'm thinking.
No, the properties and behavior would not be.
Because whatever reservation we have is a store. It's not an actual reservation. Mm.
No, this now it is an actual reservation, right?
Yeah, but we coupled the domain model and the persistence model. Like your DAO, which is the books, ISBN user map. All of this is sorry. In the reservation, these are all DAOs, no? The ISBN user map, user ISBN map. These are all DAOs. These are tightly coupled with. So if you ever want to extend reservation, then you are extending these attributes as well, which is meaning you're extending the data access objects as well. Not a good pattern. To have reservation and somehow maintain a store or a repository of reservations. So I would like to see this ISBN user map, ISBN user ISBN map in a reservation repository instead. And that repository should somehow make use of this reservation rather than this maps of list of something.
So, hey,
I
Surya,
I'm not
why
able
is
to
the
follow
NT
along.
pattern?
Hmm?
I like what does DAO do?
Yeah, so in software, right?
Yeah.
So reservation, operation, book, user. These are all your domain objects. Domain objects are also called as model objects. Now,
Okay.
domain or model objects are okay to expose to your external teams also.
Okay.
Yeah, in service-oriented architecture, you are free to expose domain objects. And coupling domain objects with business objects is not a very good pattern. That's a tight coupling. So imagine you are exposing this reservation to external party. Feel free to do so. Let them give these details and invoke your API with it. That's fine.
But
But the
why do you
moment you
think this is a reservation is a domain
hmm,
object?
reservation, so do you agree user is a domain object?
Hmm.
So user is a model
Model,
object.
yeah.
Yeah.
So book is a model.
Yeah.
Now, if I keep reservation tightly within my system itself, then I'm doing strong coupling. I want probably to make reservation user or these domain objects, which means I do not want to have persistence layer linked with the domain layer. The usually even within your system it's not a good practice. For example, I have different types of reservations coming in tomorrow which I want to extend. For example, pending reservation is only one. Imagine there could be other types of reservations which all share the common attribute of reservation. Now if I have these attributes inside that reservation class, what does it mean? The moment I extend this, I am also getting those. I don't care about those. Reservation store cares about those. You get what I'm trying to say?
So basically, what you are trying to say is you said that we can expose model to different teams,
Hmm.
but this is something we do not want to expose to other team.
Even if you don't want to expose, let's take that out of the
Nay,
question.
is it okay
Expose
to expose this?
not good because you added persistence here. No, the books ISBN user map, then it's not good to expose. The moment you add any business logic to this, persistence to this, it's not good to expose. That's first reason. Exposing or not exposing is secondary concern. The first primary concern is I have a pending reservation. Imagine, I'm not able to give a good example, but imagine I have another sort of reservation I want to add tomorrow. Okay, reservation as the base, which means every reservation will have a user, operation, borrowed date, due date, but I want to maintain different kinds of reservations, pending reservation, queued reservation, whatnot. So I want to extend the reservation type with the other children, take the common attributes from the parent and customize it to my own requirement. Now, the moment you add these persistence objects into this reservation class, you do lose that ability. Do you agree?
Yeah. So basically, what you are saying is we should have a
Hmm.
DAO, and we should keep
Yeah.
these three in this DAO
Yeah, call
reservation.
it a repo, maybe. Yeah. Call it a DAO. Yeah, that's even better. So where is the
Is there a
DAO server?
difference between repo and DAO?
Repo is actually repository. So it's like Spring Boot uses this term repository. The general name for this is data access object. So you create something like repository is storing the actual data, and your DAO is creating an entry point to access the data so as to avoid the type coupling. So you'll create something like get ISBN user map. In the reservation DAO you'll have a method called get ISBN users map. So that will return your ISBN user map or do some filtration or do something on top of it. So since it is also storing the ISBN user map in memory in our case, it can also be a repo. But DAO is better because tomorrow I want to change this to somewhere else, like the ISBN user map. I don't want it to be in memory anymore. I want to persist and get from the database. Now you just switch the implementation of this DAO to get it from. So this is not also a DAO. This is a DAO IMPL actually. This is reservation DAO IMPL. Reservation DAO will be get user based on reservation. Get ISBN based on user, or get ISBN by user or something like that. And that will be implemented by this DAO, where this DAO, this implementation is fetching from in memory. Another implementation can be fetching from Postgres. Another implementation can be fetching from Oracle, whatnot.
But
So
who
this
will be doing a reservation then? Will DAO be making a reservation?
the reservation DAO is supposed to construct the reservation objects, or from the front end you get a reservation object, and it's your responsibility to translate that reservation into the mechanism that's understood by reservation DAO. So create two classes: reservation DAO IMPL. So this one, mark this as IMPL, reservation DAO implementation.
कचरा हो गया वाला. For now, let's say. अच्छा इधर भी जा सकते हैं, right? ठीक है. So
Yeah.
reservation.
What is the purpose of reservation? To do reservation DAO, you have to do the create, update, delete, right?
Third part, yeah.
So define the methods in the DAO.
So let's say get
Get
book
users by book. Get users
users
by book.
by ISBN,
Get
right?
user reservations by ISBN or something like that.
Get
Yeah. Get user
user
reserv. Mm.
reservation by ISBN. Okay, ये भी चलेगा, ठीक है. Or let's say get add,
Reservation. Create reservation.
but reservation create reservation.
Mm. Create reservation takes a reservation object. Also add the method names and the return types.
ठीक है. Now what it will
Um,
do? It will update books. No, it will update ISBN.
Don't no. DAO will never contain any business logic. These are all
अच्छा, this is an
abstract.
interface, right?
Yeah, this is an interface. So don't add any logic here.
Or maybe since implementation sir we are using it. Okay. So annotation बोल रही थी यार वो I and then C, right?
What? I've never seen this pattern. I reservation DAO exists in .NET, but I mean,
C
the
sharp,
code
C.
we use is if you have a DAO and if you don't have an IMPL, it's a abstract or interface.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, .NET people use I also. Totally up to you.
So create reservation. Okay.
Hmm.
So it is having just like declarations, right?
Exactly. The signature.
Signature. Okay. And then we'll have get book by users. Back get book reservation
Get reservations by user. That's all. Book reservation or some other reservation. We'll see later. Get reservations by user.
Version by user.
Hmm.
Now these
Reservations.
will be
Should be
implemented.
very careful with the method name. You'll get more than one reservation.
So DAO implementation will have it this, and they
Yeah,
will
you'll have
implement.
those methods. And in addition, this reservation DAO IMPL is a kind of in-memory IMPL, no? So we can call it reservation DAO in-memory IMPL. And you'll have reservation DAO Postgres IMPL.
In memory IMPL.
Hmm.
Okay.
Then get reservation by ISBN also takes the ISBN ID, no? The input should have ISBN, no?
Hmm. And then it will ask to ISBN.
Hmm.
बेसिकली हाँ तो ये रिटर्न कर देगा राइट.
पाइथन और इसका जूस कर दिया आपने.
नहीं सही है, ये मिक्स है.
स्नेक केस
जाइथन.
नहीं क्या स्नेक ये ऐसा स्नेक केस के चक्कर में क्या.
नहीं नहीं नहीं, वो ISBN यूजर मैप ऑफ ISBN. अरे अरे जैसा एनोटेशन लगाया ना, डॉट गेट लगानी है अगर जावा है तो.
अच्छा.
जाइथन बन गया, राइट.
डॉट गेट और फिर की देना होता है राइट.
राइट.
Okay, then similarly we'll have it right when
Yeah,
they will put, but create reservation is related to this right.
correct. That's your domain object. So if someone wants to create a reservation, you'll create these objects and you'll pass it to the DAO. So reservation accessor dot create reservation. Reservation accessor will be composed of reservation DAO.
Reservation sorry.
Accessor. But anyway, let's not complicate like that. Imagine DAO is yeah, you'll
So yeah, it's the same as like we do in Spring Boot controller, which will actually
configure.
call, then the
uh,
service which will do all the things, and the DAO which will eventually will persist the data.
Correct.
Because
Spring Boot DAO, if you are using that Spring Hibernate, right, you will have repository where you don't need to write the queries, but you'll just say find user by ID, you supply the user entity, and it will write the query on its own.
Yeah,
But that's not a great practice. It does give you a lot of customization. Unless you are doing very bare minimum primitive get put operations.
yeah.
So
Very, very complex to use if we do any
Hmm.
join or something like that.
Yeah,
now
not
create
very
reserve.
performant. No, yeah, go on.
So for create create reservation will add will create.
Create reservation will take this, and how do we create reservation? You update two maps, no? You update ISBN map, you update user map.
What about अच्छा.
हाँ, reservation से extract करो जो भी data
but
extract करना
we
है.
but
Hmm.
we said like we so we will add it, but along
Hmm.
with these we will create a reservation object as well right.
कहाँ पे? अगर रिजर्वेशन डाउ में आप रिजर्वेशन की बात कर रहे हो, लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल, इमेजिन दिस इज नॉट अ मैप. Reservation should have reservation details. Yes.
So
So
maybe map of reservation ID comma reservation object.
हाँ कर लो या.
ऐसा.
So you'll also support get reservation by ID. Reservation will also have a reservation ID now.
हाँ ठीक है.
ठीक है. हाँ, अब क्रिएट रिजर्वेशन जब हुआ तो आप एक ऑटो इंक्रीमेंटिंग आईडी लगानी है जो एटॉमिक इंटीजर बनेगा. तो एटॉमिक इंटीजर रिजर्वेशन आईडी स्टार्ट्स विद 0 एंड जब इंक्रीमेंट होता रहेगा एटॉमिक इंटीजर डॉट इंक्रीमेंट होता रहेगा.
Okay,
Yeah, that's all. So add to the reservation map, add to the user map, add to the ISBN map. That's all.
and then we'll have delete reservation.
Hmm.
But isn't it interacting with अच्छा, ये तो this is implementing it, interacting with this only.
Mm. Yeah, it's using the reservation domain object, and that domain object is creating your internal stores. Now imagine you wanna, so these are maps. Now you don't want to store it, so copy the reservation DAO in memory object and mark it as redis impl. So reservation DAO redis impl. Tomorrow you might want to do it in redis, right? So at which point you'll simply change the implementation. You don't need to change the reservation DAO object.
But what about these
कौन सा? हाँ
map?
वही तो, मैप जो है वो रिडिस में है, यूजर जो है वो भी रिडिस में है, ये रिजर्वेशन जो है ये पोस्टग्रेस में है.
अच्छा, okay,
हम्म.
okay.
So copy this DAO IMPL, like the
But
whole object.
these are not these maps are not related to reservation, right? These are not
Yeah,
like
those
they are
maps
not
are
playing
your,
with the reservations. They are just they are just for faster
yeah,
making the
those are
operation.
like caching operations, for example. So that's why you will have like reservations DAO redis IMPL.
Okay,
Probably. Yeah. So copy this and make any another redis IMPL. And when you wanna retrieve, you'll make a remote call to the dictionary server and get the user map, and or you ask it like get me the ID. You'll not have maps anymore in your domain.
okay, okay. And basically, this is interacting with in here.
सूर्या इन रियल वर्ल्ड
Mm.
हम कैश to यूज करेंगे फॉर फास्टर रिट्रीवल
Mm.
यूजर यूजर कॉमा लिस्ट ऑफ बुक्स एंड बुक कॉमा लिस्ट ऑफ यूजर्स
Mm.
Okay, in real world database में तो we won't create two different table, right? Or we would create a aggregate table.
डिपेंड्स. अगर आपके यूज केस में राइट हैवी सिस्टम है
Mm-hmm.
तो राइट्स बहुत फास्ट होना चाहिए. तो अगर आप आपकी टेबल छोटी सी है और आप पोस्टग्रेस यूज कर रहे हो, तो
Mm-hmm.
आपको 3 राइट्स करना पड़ेंगे ना. एज़ इन
Mm-hmm.
इमेजिन योर कैश इज़ लाइक योर डेटाबेस इटसेल्फ.
Mm-hmm.
यू आर यूजिंग डेटाबेस एज़ अ कैश. तो
Mm-hmm.
आपकी एक पहला कॉलम होगा यूजर आईडी, दूसरा कॉलम होगा जो भी स्टोर करना चाह रहे हो वो, right? So if you are using in-memory data stores which are of outside
Redis.
Postgres technology, for example, Redis or something,
Mm-hmm.
then you have to also take care of transactions, because हाँ Redis में अपडेट हो गया, मैं मेरा 3 पार्ट ट्रांजैक्शंस है. तो Redis की पहला इंडेक्स जो है वो यूजर आईडी बाय आईएसबीएन मैप, वो Redis अपडेट करना है. और दूसरा इंडेक्स है आईएसबीएन बाय यूजर आईडी मैप, वो भी अपडेट करना है. और तीसरा है मेरा सोर्स ऑफ ट्रूथ पोस्टग्रेस रिजर्वेशन टेबल, वो भी अपडेट करना है.
Mm-hmm.
समझो रेडिस अप है, वो दोनों अपडेट हो गए और पोस्टग्रेस इज एक्सपीरियंसिंग इश्यूज, इट्स प्रॉब्ली डाउन. तो मेरा तीसरा अपडेट नहीं हो पा रहा है, मैं रिट्राई कर दिया पर भी नहीं हो रहा है, तो मैं जाके उसमें डिलीट करना पड़ेगा ना रेडिस में, दोनों रेडिस में. तो
Rollback.
आपकी, हाँ रोल बैक करना पड़ेगा. तो अगर अभी 3 ऑपरेशंस है, तो समझे आपकी कैच ब्लॉक इतना एफिशिएंटली लेके कि कर पाए, सारे कैसेस हैंडल हो पाए. तो पहला वाला हुआ बट दूसरा दोनों नहीं हुआ, तो पहला वाला को रोल बैक करो. पहला 2 हुआ और तीसरा नहीं हुआ, तो पहला दोनों को रोल बैक करो. इमेजिन एडिंग मोर पीसेस ऑफ सच स्टेट्स इनटू दिस, द मोर रोल बैक्स यू गॉट टू हैंडल. अगर समझो रोल बैक ही फट गया, रोल बैक फेल हो गया, तो क्या करें? तो डेटाबेसेस आर इन इनकंसिस्टेंट स्टेट नाउ.
Mm-hmm.
तो आपको तीसरा वाला आना पड़ेगा जो उस दिन हम पढ़ रहे थे, डेटाबेस कंसिस्टेंसी. व्हाट वाज दैट? डेटाबेस ऑडिटिंग मैनेजर. तो ऐसा टूल लिखना पड़ेगा जो कि सारे सिस्टम को चेक करता रहे और डिस्क्रिपेंसीज जो है उसको फिक्स करता रहे.
अच्छा,
Oh.
whichever is behind, bringing
हम्म.
everybody to the
जो
same
भी
setup.
change जो भी diff दिखेगा वो को sync
Then
करें.
Correct.
why not put it to the DB and then via CDC you do all these things to
Yeah, you
get
can do that, but you will not get that consistency.
fastness?
As in, yeah, I think even now you are not getting consistency anywhere. So each data source is saying a different picture throughout the transaction, no? Because it's not like a single database technology like Postgres, which is offering you read committed view across different tables. What it's doing is you are updating different tables in different states. So yeah, the rollback part is not very easy. You'll have to implement Saga pattern
Hmm.
to issue
Slowly.
compensating transaction and stuff.
What would
Yeah,
you
you
say?
could do, yeah, whatever you have to update. So maybe update the source of truth table alone in the transaction, because you want to limit your transaction scope. You don't want to play around and do this compensating orchestration during your transaction. So update whatever is source of truth. Let rest of it be done using your change data capture. If eventually consistent view is okay for your system.
No, even Saga you can use. What's the issue? You will always have a compensating transaction for every transaction, right? Even if one of the things
Uh,
fails, you
You
can
could,
just.
but isn't
Saga
it?
Saga is implementing multiple services. If you are doing, if my
Hmm.
transaction is been for multiple services, then Saga will be. But
Not
for example,
necessarily. Imagine for data sources also it can work. Generally it's used for multiple microservices, true. But ये बताओ शशांक, अगर मुझे कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी नहीं चाहिए कि मेरे पास इतना सर्विसेज नहीं है कि हर एक सर्विस के लिए एक एक डेटा सोर्स या टेबल अपडेट करना है, तो मैं ट्रांजैक्शन ही क्यों रखूं? जब ट्रांजैक्शन रखूंगा तब ना ये आएगा। तो मैं
Exactly.
बस बोलूंगा, मैं बस इवेंचुअली कंसिस्टेंट व्यू प्रॉमिस करता हूँ तुम्हें। एज इन मेरा प्राइमरी ऑलवेज राइटर जो
Consistent.
है वो कंसिस्टेंट रहेगा, दूसरा जो है वो कंसिस्टेंट इवेंचुअली रहेगा।
After
तो
some time.
मैं बस ट्रिगर करूंगा, तो आप कर लो जैसा करना है, मेरा प्राइमरी कभी रोल बैक नहीं होने वाला है। अगर ये बोल दिया हाँ ठीक है, और दूसरा लोग नए नए अपडेट कर पा रहे, वो उनकी दिक्कत है, उन्हें रिट्राई करता रहना पड़ेगा।
Exactly.
तो कॉम्पेंसेशन इज लाइक, हाँ बैक आओ, पोस्टग्रेस को रोल बैक करो, ये सब झंझाट क्यों करना चाहिए?
Better to put it into primary and via from there
हम्म।
further you
हम्म।
replicate to whichever states on
करेक्ट।
that would be more concise and better. Hmm.
एक साल पहले मैं यही एप्लीकेशन पे काम करा जिसमें हमें 2 टेबल अपडेट करना था, सेम 2 कैश अपडेट करना था। बट जो सूर्या ने बोला हमने वही किया कि अगर जस्ट इन केस वो ट्रांज़ैक्शन फ़ेल हो गया, वो एट द रेट ट्रांज़ैक्शन लगाया था तो कैश ब्लॉक में हमने रिमूव कर देते थे। बट हाँ, बट फिर ये केस अभी जस्ट सूर्या ने बोला सोचा कि जस्ट इन केस वो कैश ब्लॉक भी फ़ेल हो गया, देन वी डोंट नो, देन वी रियली डोंट नो।
हम्म।
मतलब दो कैश को एक साथ अपडेट करना था, राइट?
हाँ, मतलब पहले टेबल अपडेट होगा,
हम्म।
टेबल के बाद दोनों कैश अपडेट होंगे। लेकिन जस्ट इन केस अगर टेबल में कुछ प्रॉब्लम आ गया तो हम गलती से कैश अगर अपडेट हो भी गया है तो हम उसको वापस निकाल देंगे।
तो इसमें ये कर सकते थे ना, पहले टेबल में डालो, वाया सीडीसी काफका में पुश करो और वहां से कंज्यूमर लगा के
अरे
भेजो।
ठीक है, पर काफका बिल्ड करने में इंजीनियरिंग एफर्ट लगती
वही
है।
वही वही हम हमें वही मैं सूर्या पे आ जाएगी हमारा एक ही सर्विस था, उसमें काफका वो सब नहीं करना, और इतना कॉम्प्लेक्स सर्विस नहीं था, वो बहुत सिंपल सर्विस था।
तो सीडीसी से डायरेक्ट डंप करा सकते हैं ना दोनों कैश के अंदर? नहीं, नहीं, वो कैसे
नहीं,
होगा?
कैश
तो
इन में वही था, वो ना रेडिश वेडिश कुछ यूज नहीं कर रहे थे, वो स्प्रिंग बूट का कैश आता है,
अच्छा।
हम वो यूज कर रहे थे।
yeah, in majority of applications that I've seen in live world, your design depends on how much manpower and how much resource you have basically. तो अगर अगर मैन पावर है तो हाँ लगा दो काफका, उसके इंफ्रा बनाओ, और एक लैम्डा बनाओ जो काफका से सुनती है और सीडीसी करती है। बट this also effort, no, like 15-20 days, or whatever is the developer effort that's needed. But whatever Piyush is saying, it's a spring memory in memory application. Chance of it not able to interact with its own in memory is very less. So I'm gonna take my bet that these can't go out of sync if I'm doing rollback in the catch block.
And secondly, introducing the Kafka would have introduced latency also, right? At the expense of
Ah,
latency, you have
right.
कि वो एक हॉप
And
ले ली।
depends on criticality of the business use case. Like
तो
जब आप financials या stocks इसमें से transact कर रहे हो, so basically if you are dealing with limited of anything, limited of money, limited of inventory, limited of whatnot, limited of seats, if you are dealing with limited of anything, your engineering is complex. But if you are dealing with unlimited, or if you are dealing with use cases that do not require you to be strongly consistent, समझो log update कर रहा हूँ, हाँ एक और लॉक डाल दिया तो किसी को कुछ फर्क पड़ रहा है क्या? मेट्रिक अपडेट कर रहा हूँ, एक और मेट्रिक अपडेट कर दिया, रीट्राई कर दिया, तो किसी को कुछ फर्क पड़ रहा है क्या?
yeah, okay. Or weather updates, yeah, you'll have
हाँ।
the amount of data in that
Yeah,
one.
but
हाँ।
Surya is the stock thing only. So I work for वही इन्वेस्टमेंट वाला ही
हम्म।
सिस्टम है। बट वो है कि
हम्म।
हमारा इंटर सिस्टम और कनेक्टेड टू मैचिंग सिस्टम सर्विस, लेकिन हाँ इन CDC ये सब हमने अप्लाई नहीं किया फॉर दैट इन इन
हम्म।
द सर्विस सिस्टम।
और वो जो इन मेमोरी हो रहा है, मुझे लगता है वो कुछ कॉन्फ़िगरेशन जैसा है या यूजर सेशन हो सकता है। इन मेमोरी यू कांट बी स्टोरिंग करंट फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन ऑफ अ यूजर।
नहीं नहीं, हाँ वो वाला यूजर का इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं है, वी आर जस्ट सेविंग
हाँ
द ट्रांजैक्शन इंफॉर्मेशन, जो भी
हाँ।
वेरी रेलेवेंट इंफॉर्मेशन है, जो भी दूसरे सर्विस को भेजना है हमेशा, या सारे
हम्म
सर्विस के बाद कॉपी होना चाहिए। वो यूजर,
हम्म।
वो नहीं, वो उसमें तो पीआई है, वो मतलब वो एक वो सीएसओ आ जाता है, वो अलग प्रॉब्लम आ जाता है, तो
तो
सिक्योरिटी।
वो जो इन मेमोरी है,
हम्म।
तो अगर वो गलत से अपडेट हो गया तो यूजर को ऐसा दिखेगा कि वो ट्रांजैक्शन
हाँ,
किया, जब भी ट्रांजैक्शन फेल हो गया वो हो
या
सकता है। अच्छा, तो वो जब इन मेमोरी है उसको डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कैसा कर पाओगे आप? तो इन मेमोरी इज नॉट ए डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड कैश, नो? तो
या
जब
सो एवरी सर्विस हैव
But Redis is a distributed cache.
Redis is Spring in memory is not.
not.
Redis, the name itself is like a remote distributed server. The name remote D distributed is server. So it's remote, it's distributed. हम्म। बताओ पीयूष, अगर
हाँ
यूजर को सेम सर्वर हिट करना पड़ेगा ना ट्रांजैक्शन देखने के लिए,
हाँ
तो सेम सर्वर क्यों हिट करेगा? आपके पास 10-15 होंगे।
हाँ, हमारे पास जितने भी सर्विसेज सब अलग अलग सर्वर्स पे है।
तो
हाँ,
व्हाट इज द चांस ऑफ कैश हिट रेट इन दैट केस? वेरी वेरी लो, राइट?
वेरी लो, वेरी लो, वेरी लो।
हम्म। तो फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता है, लाइक
हाँ हाँ
वन इन ए मिलियन केस यू,
हाँ।
नॉट मिलियन, मे बी वन इन वेरी। अगर मेरा इन मेमोरी को मैं कैसा अपडेट नहीं कर पाऊंगा, अपडेट वही होगा क्या?
या एंड मोस्ट ऑफ द एप्लीकेशन जो जिसमें मैं काम किया हूँ उसमें कैशेस बहुत हैवी नहीं है। कुछ कुछ
हम्म
एप्लीकेशन में कैशेस हैवी होते हैं, जैसे हमारे कुछ कुछ सिस्टम थे जहाँ पर एक एप्लीकेशन का 50 GB भी कैश हो सकता है।
हम्म।
बट मोस्टली हमारे इतने कैशेस हैवी नहीं होते हैं, तो ना
मेरे
प्रॉब्लम।
में मेरे कंपनी में डेटाबेस को ही एज अ कैश यूज कर लेते हैं।
अच्छा है ना?
हाँ, बफर पूल कुछ
वो
होता
अच्छा
है,
है ना।
पोस्टग्रेस में
हम्म।
बफर पूल करके होता है, पर
You
क्यों,
know,
व्हाई?
most reliable systems are boring technologies.
हम्म।
एग्जैक्टली।
या
So if it's boring, it's reliable. तो डेटाबेस को लोग क्यू के हिसाब से यूज करते हैं। आप जो पेंडिंग पेंडिंग क्यू लगाए ना इसको इधर,
डीबी
तो
डाले।
हाँ वो पेंडिंग नहीं चाहिए, डीबी में लगा दो और ट्रांजैक्शन टाइम स्टैम्प पे लगा दो, और तुम्हारा क्वेरी बस प्रॉपरली होना चाहिए कि सॉर्ट बाय असेंडिंग ऑर्डर ऑफ टाइम स्टैम्प फॉर द गिवन बुक, ताकि वो क्यू है तो क्यू में ऐसा ही रहेगा ना। एंड दैट्स अ बेटर प्रैक्टिस, बिकॉज इफ यू कितना कितने मैसेजेस में ऐसा क्यू में परसिस्ट करते रहूं, तो काफका लगाओ या जो भी लगाओ, क्यू में जब लगा सकते हो जब कंजम्पशन फ्रॉम द क्यू इज ऑलमोस्ट गारंटीड टू बी इमीडिएट। और ये जो बुक मैंने लगाया, तो इधर मुझे पता नहीं है ना वो कब रिटर्न देगा, तब कब बुक अवेलेबल होगा ताकि मैं इसको कंज्यूम करके दे सकूं। तो you'll probably have to do some sort of database persistence, ताकि जब वो बुक रिटर्न आए तो एक ऑब्जर्वर इधर कॉल करेगा और देखेगा, सेलेक्ट करो क्या कुछ बुक किसी ने रिक्वेस्ट किया क्या। अगर रिक्वेस्ट किया तो इसके इसके पेंडिंग को इस पे कन्वर्ट करो और उसको नोटिफिकेशन भेजो कि हाँ तुम्हारा बुक इतने देर के लिए अवेलेबल है, अगर आके कलेक्ट कर सकते तो कर सको ऐसा भी।
तो ये हमने सिमिलर थिंग किया है, सिमिलर। तो
हम्म
हमारा वही इशू, हमारा यूएसए, लंदन, सिंगापुर,
हम्म
जापान, इंडिया अलग अलग टाइम जोन है। तो ऐसा
हम्म
हो सकता है कि जापान का ट्रेड मुझे न्यूयॉर्क के क्लोज टाइम पे मिल जाए।
हम्म
सो हम क्या करते हैं, हमको डेटाबेस में एज क्यूड मार्क कर देते हैं, और
हम्म।
जैसे यूएस का टाइम अप होता है तो हम वो सारा डील्स उठा लेते हैं।
अच्छा।
हाँ।
या database queue is not a boring technology,
हम्म।
it's a reliable technology.
Like using DB as a cache. I asked this question also, that what is the use of the cache? Like, I mean, cache was basically there for a minimum lookup time you can fetch it.
हम्म।
But
तो
later I
तुम्हारा यूज केस कैसा चल रहा है डीबी एज ए कैश एज इन, उसमें कैसा चल, क्या क्या यूज केस क्या है?
use case में stock की company है, right?
हाँ।
So for the most recent, I mean, I'm in a part of a loan where I have to
हम्म
grant loans to the folks based on their
हम्म
civil score and all that. So most
हम्म
recent transactions, rather than hitting to the DB, we are putting it into the Postgres itself as a cache.
तो मैंने बताया ना कि ये मटेरियलाइज्ड व्यूज जो होते हैं,
Hmm.
मटेरियलाइज्ड व्यूज, तो
Hmm.
अगर आपकी कुछ मैक्स मिन या ऐसा कुछ करना है, तो
Okay.
आपको डेटाबेस पे ऑर्डर ऑफ एन लुकअप करना करना ही पड़ेगा, एटलीस्ट ऑन द यूजर, लाइक यू विल सेलेक्ट द यूजर, you
Okay.
select all the records of the user, then you will do a O of n lookup. Now imagine the user has like 10,000 records. That's a computationally expensive operation. It takes about 10 milliseconds or 20 milliseconds, something like that. Now,
True.
if I can do a point based query, as in minimum can always be only one, right? So
Hmm.
every time during an update, I do check the materialized view also. Is this minimum than what the current value says? If yes, yeah, trust this value, and you will be getting like a in few milliseconds, less than 10 milliseconds.
That would definitely improve the.
तो आपकी राइट थोड़ा कॉम्प्लिकेट होगा, आप कैश जैसा यूज कर सकते हो, बट आपकी रीड बहुत फास्ट हो गया ना, तो एंड इट्स आल्सो रिलायबल बिकॉज एन एप्लीकेशन.
एनीवेज अगर एज अ कैश भी डीबी को यूज कर रहे हैं तो डीबी से रीड करना तो ऑब्वियसली विल टेक मोर टाइम कंपेयर टू दैट रीडिंग फ्रॉम.
हाँ, और दूसरा चीज ये हो सकता है कि अगर मैं दूसरा सिस्टम इंट्रोड्यूस कर रहा हूँ, रेडिस यूज कर रहा हूँ या किसी और कैश लगाया था, तो क्या होगा, मुझे मुझे रेडिस सपोर्ट भी करना पड़ेगा ना, एज इन रेडिस का आउटेज हो सकता है, रेडिस का अलार्मिंग लगानी पड़ेगी, रेडिस का ये जो मेट्रिक्स
वो तो
हार्डवेयर मेट्रिक्स.
प्रोमिथियस ग्राफाना रहेगा ही ना, वो सब तो रहेगा ही.
क्या
Prometheus and Grafana will be there, which will be constantly monitoring this.
monitoring it, yes, but you have to write that alarm definition for the monitoring, isn't it?
True.
So engineering effort is also there. If I'm using Postgres, I already have like a monitoring infra setup on Postgres. All I need to monitor is memory and probably like memory pressure and CPU. So that's all is needed, right? And database credentials, ये सब जो है वो already है, connection already established है अगर
AWS.
मैं. तो मैं बस simply इसको reuse करूंगा, and reusing is very underrated. तो इन सब इंटरव्यूज में ये सब टेक्नोलॉजीज बताना लगाना ये सब सही है, बट जब प्रैक्टिकल वर्ल्ड में जाओगे तो ये सब नहीं चलेगा. एज इन मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम रीयूज इज अप्रिशिएटेड. तो बिल्डिंग न्यू इज नॉट ऑलवेज ग्रेट because it takes significant engineering effort. If your use case is able to be served from your Postgres with reasonable latency, then why not?
Why to unnecessarily
Hmm.
use third party service? I mean,
So there is this talk by Dukan CEO recently who moved from cloud to his own on-prem instance and saved like $80,000 per month. So that's
That bare
very
metal video on in
uh,
Arpit Bhayani channel.
correct. Yeah,
Great video.
great video. Yeah, you all should watch it.
okay.
So what is it about?
It's about self-reliance, not sticking to any cloud technology. And, अगर अगर आप ये यूज कर रहे हो ना कि क्लाउड टेक्नोलॉजी और बिल कर रहे हो इतना सारे $90,000 और समथिंग लाइक दैट, तो आप किन से वेयर डू यू कलेक्ट दैट मनी फ्रॉम? यू विल कलेक्ट फ्रॉम योर कस्टमर्स एंड ऑफ द डे. तो अगर आपको अपनी छोटा छोटा कस्टमर जो है, कोई जो इंडिया में किराना शॉप ये सब रहते हैं ना, समझो आपकी किराना शॉप को एक छोटा सा स्टोर फ्रंट लगानी है कि दूसरा नेबरहुड से ऑर्डर आ सकता है, और इट हैज टू बी वेरी चीप बिकॉज व्हाट इज द मार्जिन इवन फॉर सच स्टोर्स, राइट? So if I want to build some cheap technology with reliability, how do I hack it to happen? So what is the most critical thing in your application? Point in time recovery. तो अगर क्लाउड यूज कर रहे हो तो पॉइंट इन टाइम रिकवरी हो सकता है कि 30 seconds, maybe less than a minute or something like that. So Dukan CEO thought, what is the worst thing that could happen if point in time recovery takes 8 minutes? My customers, I don't promise 99.999979 SLA. I only promise like annually downtime हो सकता है, रात में सर्विस फट सकती है, बट दिन में जब आपकी ऑपरेशन हो रहा है तो 10 मिनट के अंदर मैं रिस्टोर कर पाऊंगा आपकी सर्विस को. So with this promise, he's brought down the cost very significantly. So that's one aspect which is predominant in that video.
Okay. तो बिजनेस यूज केस के हिसाब से उन्होंने.
हाँ, बिजनेस यूज केस के हिसाब से डिजाइन करना है. लाइक पुटिंग क्लाउड फॉर एवरीथिंग इज probably not the right thing to do because cloud allows infinite scaling, but it also comes with cost, राइट? तो इसने अपनी बेयर मेटल सर्वर लगाया बैंगलोर में इंडियन रीजन सर्व करने की, और दूसरा रीजन्स को भी. तो यूएस की कंपनीज में जो एंटरप्राइज क्लाउड मैनेज करते हैं, एज इन नॉट क्लाउड, फिजिकल डेटा सेंटर जो मैनेज करते हैं, तो डेटा सेंटर में एक रैक लीज करता है, or he pays them money to lease those physical bare metal servers, and he deploys those his code onto those bare metal servers. And because everything is Kubernetes, it does not matter if it's a virtual machine or it's a bare metal server. Create a pod and just deploy it to that instance. And he also demonstrates a beautiful thing about edge location failure. So अगर समझो आप मुंबई से कुछ ट्रांजैक्शन इनिशिएट कर रहे हो तो मुंबई की एज सर्वर को हिट करेगा। समझो मुंबई की पूरा डेटा सेंटर डाउन हो, बेयर मेटल सर्वर पूरा फट गई है, तो क्या करना है? सो ही हैज दिस राउंड रॉबिन रिंग, जाकि हर एक फेलियर नेक्स्ट 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 रिंग पे जाता रहेगा। और इमेजिन ऑल ऑफ इंडिया इज डाउन, then his request goes to Australia and still be able to serve from Australian server with higher latency, thus promising availability.
Okay.
अच्छा।
Yeah. Cool. तो कल करें क्या ये, what is it called? Coding.
हाँ, कोडिंग कल
डिजाइन
तो
करेंगे।
सिस्टम डिजाइन करेंगे। विल अब मंडे को लाइक विल मंडे या उसके पहले ही विल कोड इट एंड ब्रिंग इट अप।
शशांक भाई कर देंगे कोड।
नो नो, विल डिस्कस इट आफ्टर दैट। हाँ मतलब, पर ये सब चीज ना लाइक वी हैव टू डू इन 1.5 आवर। आई डोंट नो लाइक because that is the amount of the time you will be given there in the
वो
interview.
ऐसा रहता है कि भाई जितना आता है सब चेप दो, है
हाँ
ना, सब
वही
उल्टी करके आ जाओ।
राइट।
मतलब उस टाइम पे तो ये रहता है, राइट। लेकिन अभी क्या हो रहा है कि अपन
एक्सप्लोरेशन है, राइट राइट।
एक्सप्लोर कर रहे हैं, मतलब कोई चीज लगाना चाह रहे हैं, फिर चार बंदे उसे उंगली कर रहे हैं, राइट। भाई ये क्यों चलेगा,
तीन
ये
चीजें
नहीं
याद कर
चलेगा।
लो कि सॉलिड प्रिंसिपल्स क्या मैं फॉलो कर रहा हूँ, कहीं
राइट
वायलेट कर रहा हूँ। फॉर एग्जांपल दिस रिजर्वेशन वी टुक, राइट, वी क्लब द डोमेन ऑब्जेक्ट विद द um,
परसिस्टेंस।
रेपो डाउ।
mm,
The first thing first, I look for interface and abstract whenever such problems are given, because that is what the interviewer look for. Like, have you used any interface or any abstract if possible? Then entity तो है ही, entity तो आसानी से आ जाती है, right? Thereafter separation of concern and जो है SRP मतलब solid का जो भी है।
So for user you can't create interface, right? Similarly for book you can't create।
हाँ, यहाँ पे तो नहीं, मतलब इंटरफेस तभी यूज करेंगे जब कुछ कॉमन फंक्शनैलिटी 3-4 एंटिटी में दिखे। ऐसा कोई फंक्शनैलिटी ही
तो
नहीं
यहाँ
है,
पे बस वो रिजर्वेशन डाउ ही है एक इंटरफेस, राइट।
तो वो कहाँ यूज होगा? बस उसी में
तो
ना।
यहाँ पे we have created one implementation which is in memory, then we also discuss redis implementation, right?
अच्छा,
So it will be implementing these methods only, right?
राइट।
So that's why it is, so this is the only interface for now।
Yeah, because those three are common functions which can be utilized. Yeah.
ये इसको उसमें कर सकते हो ना, मैं आपकी एक्सटेंसिबिलिटी वो
मे बी अकन अब, सॉरी।
इंटरव्यू हमेशा पूछते ही है ना कि इसको एक्सटेंड कैसे करोगे कोड को, तो बोल सकते हैं कि यहाँ पर आप रेडिस की
मे बी
जगह।
यहाँ पे हाँ एक्सटेंसिबल बनाने के लिए क्या कर सकते हैं इन सब चीज़ों को। अब ये क्या है, ये मेमोरी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन लाइब्रेरी सर्विस नहीं होगी, राइट। इसको अपन पास कर सकते हैं इंस्टेड ऑफ हार्ड कोडिंग और बेसिकली creating them in constructor, maybe we could use pointers, right? And we can inject these user manager book aggregation object. This will make it extensible, right? Dependency injection.
DI.
What do you think, Piv? What?
हाँ, मैं भी डिपेंडेंसी इंजेक्शन के हिसाब से सोच रहा हूँ कि हाँ,
तो
यस।
लिस्ट ऑफ बुक्स जो है इधर वो DI नहीं होगा। बुक स्टोर जो है उसके लिए डाउ रहेगी, बुक एग्रीगेटर जो है उसके लिए भी डाउ रहेगी। यूजर मैनेजर इज एट DI, but why do they have a user manager? I think yeah, even that's like a user repository, right? So yeah, उसके लिए भी एक DAO रहेगी। Yeah, DI should.
Acha. So whenever you are interacting with model, you can have a DAO.
So DAO being in the first layer of service is probably not a good idea. So whatever managers or something you had, right? Those managers will exist. Like user will have a user manager, book will have a book manager, and then book aggregator does exist. And underneath the book manager deals with book DAO. This is, there'll also be a reservation manager probably which deals with reservation DAO.
Okay.
So this is because if you plug your reservation DAO directly, maybe I want to change tomorrow my reservation, that it has to update two data sources at once. अगर मैं अपना सीधा रिजर्वेशन डाउ इधर लगाया तो दो डेटा सोर्सेस को कैसे अपडेट करूं? अगेन यहाँ पे भी चेंज करना पड़ेगा।
कहाँ पे?
यहाँ पे अगर लाइब्रेरी सर्विस में मैं रिजर्वेशन मैनेजर की अलावा रिजर्वेशन डाउ को डायरेक्टली लगा दिया, दैट्स नॉट अ ग्रेट आइडिया। तो रिजर्वेशन मैनेजर लगाओ, रिजर्वेशन मैनेज के अंदर डाउ से इंटरेक्ट करो।
अच्छा,
ताकि अगर आप रिजर्वेशन में कुछ कैशिंग वैशिंग लगाना चाहते हो तो रिजर्वेशन मैनेजर विल आल्सो अपडेट द कैश एंड आल्सो अपडेट योर प्राइमरी सोर्स ऑफ ट्रूथ।
ओह, सो कैश तो ये काम कर रहा है, राइट? कैश का
कौन?
दीज
वही तो रिजर्वेशन आपकी दो डाव चाहिए, फॉर एग्जांपल एक कैश वाला डाव, एक पोस्टग्रेस वाला डाव। So if you keep like the bare reservation DAO in the library service itself, imagine you want to add a caching layer on reservation. Then you have to make those changes on the reservation library service, like the root object.
these are caching, we are caching only here, right? Map
अभी
of
कैशिंग कर
ISB.
रहे हैं, समझो एक दूसरा आपको चेंज आया भाई, कैशिंग नहीं, कैशिंग सफिशिएंट नहीं है, आपको कुछ परसिस्टेंट करना है या किसी और जगह लिखना है या कुछ भी करना है, तो आपको यहाँ पे करना सही है या रिजर्वेशन मैनेजर करके वहां पे ऑफलोड करना सही है?
So reservation manager तो common होगा, right? Whether it's
करेक्ट, रिजर्वेशन
it's for cache
मैनेजर
or whether it's for persistent storage or
or
maybe file
combination
storage.
of them. Yeah, or a combination of them is the point. Reservation manager exists at this moment. It's constructed of a reservation DAO, and based on the in-memory IMPL, you injected the in-memory IMPL. Tomorrow, you may want to interact with two such data sources. For example, अगर दो सच डेटा सोर्स चाहिए तो रिजर्वेशन मैनेजर के अंदर वो दोनों लिखना सही है, rather than your library service having the reservation DAO directly built into it.
Okay. So what you are saying here, reservation DAO and reservation should be handled here. Is it? Maybe.
What's the question?
So you wanted it this way only, right? Where
हाँ, reservation manager, reservation DAO, yes, and this DAO is DI'd with the reservation DAO in memory IMPL. Tomorrow you may
so
wanna have like,
user will library service will interact with manager
yeah,
and it will
reservation manager will interact with the DAO.
reservation manager will interact with DAO.
समझो कल ये इन मेमोरी है ना, और एक लगाओ कि रिजर्वेशन मैनेजर, रिजर्वेशन डाउ पोस्टग्रेस आईएमपीएल लगाओ अभी, तो समझो आपके पास पोस्टग्रेस आईएमपीएल भी है, तो रिजर्वेशन इन मेमोरी एक डाउ रहेगी, रिजर्वेशन पोस्टग्रेस एक डाउ रहेगी, जैसा पैटर्न पीयूष ने बताया।
ठीक है,
तो दोनों कंस्ट्रक्ट करोगे आप। इट्स नॉट लाइक ईदर और, कभी कभी होता है ईदर और इफ यू वांट स्विच इम्प्लीमेंटेशंस, बट इस केस में दोनों होंगे।
बट यहाँ पे तो एक ही रिजर्वेशन डाउ था ना,
दो लगाओ, कौन रुक रहा है आपको? रिजर्वेशन डाउ पोस्टग्रेस लगाओ, रिजर्वेशन डाउ इन मेमोरी लगाओ, और डिपेंडेंसी इंजेक्शन जब कर रहे हो दोनों को इंजेक्ट करो।
सो नाउ वी आर टाइट कपलिंग कि अपने पास दो डाउ
नॉट
होने
टाइट
चाहिए।
कपलिंग, तो रिजर्वेशन पोस्टग्रेस डाउ करो, सो द डाउ इज स्टिल द डाउ, टाइट कपलिंग एग्जिस्ट व्हेन यू कांट स्विच द इम्प्लीमेंटेशंस। तो
So we
दोनों
can
आप
switch the implementation, but here this design requires you to have two DAOs, right? Maybe I don't want to have two.
मत रखो।
So it means अगर नहीं रखना है तो फिर मेरे को एडिट करना पड़ेगा, right? ये
हाँ,
फिर
तो चेंज
हटाना
करना ही पड़ेगा। अगर समझो योर बिजनेस सेज इन मेमोरी इज क्रैशिंग, so we can't trust this anymore. You can still continue to use in memory if you want to add caching, but I want to persist this anyway. तो अगर कुछ रिक्वायरमेंट आया जैसा, तो और एक डाव लगानी पड़ेगी ना।
ओके, ठीक है, तो ये यहाँ से काम करेगा, राइट? ठीक है, ओके ठीक है
Cool.
ठीक है कल मिलते हैं ऐसे
कल
सॉरी
तो सिस्टम डिजाइन करते हैं कुछ.
ओके कूल ओके थैंक यू
Thank you all. Thank you everyone. You guys.